Story 1. I am pregnant, and my husband's abandoned daughter showed up on our doorstep, hits me on my belly, and tells me she hopes my baby dies while my husband just buys her ice cream. I feel like the worst person in the world for typing this out to begin with, but I need some reassurance or some practical ways I can handle the situation before I completely lose my mind. My husband and I are very much in love. We met over 5 years ago through work and got married last year. It was my first marriage and his second. We recently bought a house together and everything, and decided it was a good time to start a family. After months of trying, I am now pregnant with a beautiful, wrinkly fetus. I'm about 5 months along at the moment, and though I feel a bit more emotional/craving crazy than I used to be, I still feel rather healthy and good about myself. My husband was supportive and took very good care of me until Ava, obviously not her real name and not my daughter, came into our life. He used to make me breakfast before work and would rub my feet when I got home. He'd even gone to the store at like 3 a.m. once when I desperately needed pickles and ice cream. Yeah, I know, so cliché. He would constantly talk to my belly and had already bought a ton of baby books. We were so excited about this baby, our first together. We had the nursery all planned out. But since she showed up, everything has changed. No more foot rubs, no more breakfast in bed. He barely even talks to me anymore, except to tell me what Ava wants for dinner or to ask if I've seen her backpack. It's like I've become invisible in my own home. I tried to bring it up once, and he just said he was tired from adjusting to having a kid around. I get that, I do, but I'm growing an entire human being inside me. I'm tired too. Ava is from my husband's first marriage. He was married to a woman who, after only 4 years of marriage, grew bored of him and cheated on him with many men. When my husband found out, he went through her cell phone on a gut feeling. He was livid and upset with her. She had been sending and receiving nudes for months. Some of them were even with guys they both knew, including one of his cousins. Despite this, he wanted to work things out with her, but she had already moved in with another man, taken Ava with her, and served him divorce papers along with a restraining order. She claimed he was abusive, which was complete nonsense according to him and everyone who knew him, but the courts always side with the mother, don't they? She also sent Ava to therapists, trying to brainwash her into thinking my husband was a neglectful father. My husband took this woman to court to fight for joint custody, but ultimately lost. He could only see her a few times a year. Immediately after winning, she took Ava and moved to a different city, almost 3 hours away, with her new man. Since her birth in 2007, my husband has only seen Ava about a dozen times for special occasions or weddings. He technically still has custody of her, but not at all primary, only on paper. I've always felt bad for him about this whole situation, but it wasn't really something that affected our day-to-day life until recently. From what my husband has told me, his ex is a piece of work. She's been through at least 4 serious relationships since leaving him, always dragging Ava along with her. She's the type who can't be alone, always needs a man to support her. My husband sent child support every month like clockwork, even when he was struggling to pay his own rent, and she would still call him up demanding more money for school supplies or medical expenses that he's pretty sure were fake. I've only met her once, at a school event for Ava that my husband was allowed to attend. She showed up in clothes that were way too tight and too young for her, hanging all over some guy with a neck tattoo. She barely acknowledged my husband, except to make a snide comment about how he traded down when she saw me. Real classy lady. We met when I was 20 and he was 30. He was still in the middle of divorce papers and was wrecked from having to pay alimony along with child support and not being able to get any closure on his marriage or access to his daughter. We both worked at this office supply store. I was doing it part-time while in college and he was a manager. I thought he was cute from day one, but he was so serious all the time. Then one day, I found him in the break room looking at pictures of a little girl on his phone with tears in his eyes. I awkwardly asked if he was okay, and he told me about his daughter and how his ex wouldn't let him see her. Something about the way he talked about her, how much he obviously loved her despite barely knowing her. It just got to me. We became good friends and hung out often. Until about a year into the friendship, we decided to move in together. I needed a roommate, and he needed a roommate because he could no longer support himself living alone. My previous roommate had just moved out with her boyfriend, and his apartment was too expensive for just him with all the child support and stuff. It was supposed to be just a practical arrangement. The first few months were a bit awkward, but we got used to each other. He was actually a really good roommate. Clean, quiet, paid his share on time. Sometimes we'd watch movies together or I'd help him study for his business classes. He was trying to finish his degree. We fell for each other gradually until we were in love, and after his finances were straightened out, he proposed to me, and we were married last year, as I'd said before. When we got married, I knew he had a daughter, but she was living 3 hours away with her mother who had full custody. I never expected to be a stepmom in any meaningful way. Maybe see the kid a couple times a year, buy her birthday and Christmas presents, that kind of thing. He would get sad around her birthday or Christmas, and I'd comfort him and help him pick out presents to mail to her, but that was the extent of it. We never planned for her to actually live with us. I guess I should also mention that we had some struggles before we got married. His ex found out about me and suddenly started letting him see Ava more, but only if I wasn't there. She told Ava I was the reason her parents weren't getting back together. My husband would never stand up to her because he was so desperate to see his kid. I understood, I really did, but it hurt to be excluded and villainized for no reason. Eventually, his ex got bored of that game and went back to keeping Ava away from him entirely. Long story short, Ava's mom broke it off with yet another man. Word of mouth is she met another man online who lives an entire state away and wanted to go live with him. Apparently, this new guy wasn't interested in being an instant dad, so she couldn't bring Ava with her this time. Instead, she left Ava with her parents, Ava's maternal grandparents, who live in our city. But the maternal grandparents are old. They're old, weak, and though they like having their granddaughter around, they can't raise her. They can't help with homework or help her get ready for school. They don't drive. So one day, Ava literally just showed up on our doorstep, and we've had to readjust our whole lives for her. The grandparents called us and basically said, "We can't handle her. She's yours now," and just dropped her off. No warning, no time to prepare. Just suddenly, here's a 7-year-old I barely know living in my house. My husband was stunned but also kind of happy. He's always wanted to be a real dad to her. I was less thrilled, especially since we had just found out about the pregnancy a few weeks earlier. I've never had so much hatred for a 7-year-old in my life. I feel like dirt even typing that out. I'm supposed to be a mom soon myself. What kind of monster hates a little kid? But God, this child is a nightmare. Ava is the rudest little girl I've ever seen. She has no manners and no consideration for anyone. She talks back to her father and gives him attitude. She only smiles and acts loving when she wants something, like new toys or clothes she wants. The other day, she told him his cooking was gross and demanded McDonald's instead. And what did my husband do? He went out and got her McDonald's. I was sitting there eating the perfectly good pasta he made, and he runs out to get her fast food because she complained. When she found out she was to get a younger sibling, instead she smacked me. She smacked my belly at random times when I walk past her, and it makes me livid and drives me to tears. I'm terrified she's going to hurt the baby. I tell her that it's unacceptable to hit anyone, especially her sibling, but she screams that I'm not her mom and I can't tell her what to do. I know, who's heard of that one before? I've tried so hard to be nice to her. I tried making her favorite foods. I bought her some coloring books and toys. I even took her to the park and bought her an ice cream. She thanked me by dropping the ice cream on the floor of my car. By accident, sure. I spent an hour cleaning melted chocolate ice cream out of my car carpet while she watched TV and laughed. She won't sleep in her own bed either. My husband set up a nice bedroom for her the day after she arrived. We had a guest room that we were going to turn into a nursery, but instead it became Ava's room. We bought her new bedding with puppies on it. She said she likes dogs, and a nightlight and even a stuffed animal. But every night she claims she's scared and climbs into bed with my husband. And where am I supposed to sleep? On the couch, apparently, because I'm not comfortable with a kicking, snoring child in our bed. I told my husband about her behavior and how she acts when he's not around. Deliberately makes messes that I have to clean, draws on my paintings and books with markers, won't eat my home-cooked food but demands pizza and ice cream. And instead of scolding and disciplining her, He plates her and gets her what she wants. His idea of scolding is, don't do that again, okay? It's like he's gone from being a dependable family man to a flaccid doormat of a father. She's been here for about 2 weeks now, and every day is worse than the last. Yesterday, she took my pregnancy journal, where I've been writing letters to the baby, and scribbled all over it with permanent marker. When I cried, she laughed. My husband just said, "Ava, that wasn't nice," and then bought her an ice cream to cheer her up later. What the hell? I spent months writing in that journal. It was going to be a gift for our child someday. And now it's ruined and she got rewarded for it. I'm starting to wonder if my husband even cares about our baby at all. He's so caught up in trying to win Ava's love that he's completely neglecting me and our unborn child. When I try to talk to him about it, he just says that Ava needs extra attention right now because she's been through so much. What about what I need? What about what our baby needs? I want to send her back to her mother. Maybe she'd be better off in foster care. But at this point, I don't care anymore. I don't like feeling toxic when I am about to be a mother. I've tried so hard to be a mother figure to this girl, the best I can be, but this girl is beastly to me. I'm always walking by her with my hands around my belly in case she strikes me again. If this is how she is going to be, I don't want her to affect my unborn baby. She's already having a profound negative effect on my husband. I hate her stupid white trash mother for ripping her away from my husband, denying him access, and then dumping her on her parents and then onto us once she wanted some new out-of-state to ride. I know this girl is the consequence of her environment. It has to be. But I don't know what we can do at this point. I've never worked with behavioral children, and I've never dreamed that I'd be a wicked stepmother figure in the midst of being barefoot and pregnant. When I got pregnant, I had this vision of a peaceful, happy pregnancy. My husband taking care of me, us picking out baby stuff together, decorating the nursery. Instead, I'm dealing with this hellspawn who seems determined to make me miserable and a husband who won't back me up. I tried talking to my sister about this, and she basically told me to grow up and deal with it because Ava is just a child. Easy for her to say when she doesn't have a psycho kid hitting her pregnant belly. She has 2 perfect little angels who say please and thank you and never cause any trouble. She has no idea what it's like to deal with a child who's been neglected and possibly taught to hate you. I also can't help but feel a little jealous, if I'm being honest. This is my first pregnancy, but my husband has already done the whole having a baby thing with his ex. Sometimes I catch him looking at Ava with this expression of pure love, and I wonder if he'll ever look at our baby that way, or if he'll be too busy trying to plate his demon spawn of a daughter to even notice when our baby takes its first steps or says its first words. My mother suggested family therapy, but I don't know if that would even help. Ava clearly hates me, and my husband refuses to see that there's a problem. He thinks we just need time to adjust to each other. Adjust to what? Living with a tiny terrorist? I know I sound like a horrible person. I know I should have more patience and understanding. She's just a kid and she's been through a lot. But so have I, and so has my husband, and that doesn't give us the right to behave like complete jerks. My question is, how the hell can I sort this family out without going absolutely mental? I feel like a prisoner in my own home and didn't sign up for this sort of dysfunctional nonsense. This is affecting my sanity, my marriage, and my family. Any input or solutions are welcome. Please help. Date 1. First, thank you all for your responses. I honestly didn't expect so many people to reply. I've read through all the comments, and though I couldn't reply to every single one, I appreciated the input. A lot of you said I need therapy, some of you said I'm a monster for hating a kid, and some of you actually gave some useful advice. I didn't realize how many stepmoms were dealing with similar issues until I posted this. Since I've started walking around with my hands casually on my belly when around Ava, she hasn't been hitting me as much as she used to. This morning, over breakfast, in front of both my husband and me, Ava told me that she hopes my baby dies. My husband had been asking her what she thinks we should name the baby. We came up with ways to try and include her in the pregnancy, and she said nothing. After my husband and I both took turns asking her, "Come on, you can think of a boy name and a girl name," she told me. "I hope your baby dies." I didn't say anything and let my husband discipline her. But as always, his idea of discipline is to say simply, "You're a big girl, you shouldn't say those things." I asked him into the next room and asked that he'd be more firm with her, as she had been physically punching me in the belly, and now it's looking like she'll be saying she hopes the baby dies. We had a massive fight after that. I told him that he needed to set real boundaries with Ava or I was going to lose my mind. He accused me of not trying hard enough to bond with her. I pointed out all the things I've done, and he just said I wasn't doing them with the right attitude, whatever that means. He thinks Ava can sense that I don't like her. Well, no, I don't like being hit and having my stuff destroyed. A few nights ago, I found out that Ava had taken a pair of scissors to my maternity clothes. I had bought a few cute dresses for her when I got bigger, and she cut them all up. When I confronted her, she just stared at me with this blank expression and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Even though the scissors were still in her hand and there were fabric scraps all over her room. My husband's response? Kids do destructive things sometimes. She's expressing her feelings. What feelings require destroying my clothes? Am I taking crazy pills here? One poster actually mentioned that I might be jealous of Ava's existence because it's a reminder that I'm going through a first marriage and my first pregnancy with someone who's done it all before. And you know what? I'll admit that does bother me a bit. Having Ava be so behavioral and difficult as she is isn't really helping my feelings either, though. I will say not many commenters in my op said much about what to do about Ava hitting me on my 5-month pregnant belly. But I can say that I've never talked badly about BioMom in front of her. If I seem hostile towards her, it's probably because she acts so beastly to me, no matter what I do for her. Cook for her, pack her lunches, pick her up from camp, and even resorts to hitting me that I cannot look past. Sorry if that makes me immature and selfish, but I don't want to surround myself with that kind of negativity, even if it comes from a 7-year-old. I'm going to ask my husband, he's speaking to Ava right now, that I'll be going to live with my parents for a while, or if not, my sister. I want to finish the rest of my pregnancy in peace and without stress. The best thing for me right now is to protect the baby in my own belly. Ava is also behavioral towards her father, so I'll say that this time can be used for Ava and husband to bond. It would temporarily move me out of sight and maybe allow husband some one-to-one time with Ava. Maybe by the time I'm back in the family home with our new addition, she'll cool off a bit and we can start therapy as many of you have suggested. Thanks for your input, Reddit. I appreciated every thought, even the ones calling me a terrible person who shouldn't be a mother. Those were super helpful. Update 2. Wow, I didn't expect to get so many responses and DMs from my last update. This really blew up more than I expected. I'm going to try to answer some of the common questions and give an update on what's happened since my last update. We have put Ava into therapy and began attending marital counseling. Ava is going to therapy twice a week, and my husband and I are attending once a week. I'm glad that we managed to get everything out during our very first session, as we have the remainder of the sessions to work towards resolving the marriage as well. When I told my husband I wanted to move out, he initially freaked out. He accused me of abandoning him and Ava. I had to explain that I wasn't abandoning anyone. I was protecting our unborn child. Eventually, he calmed down and realized that maybe some space would be good for everyone. I think it also helped that my mom called him and basically read him the riot act about letting his daughter physically assault his pregnant wife. A lot of my anger has gone away since I moved out. I'm writing this from my parents' home, and I feel safe and relaxed. I've been taking some maternity yoga classes for my own peace, and I think I quite like it. My blood pressure has gone down, and I'm finally able to sleep through the night without worrying about what Ava might do while I'm asleep. One night, I woke up to find her standing over me with a pair of scissors. She claimed she was just cutting paper for a project at 2 a.m. in my bedroom in the dark. Sure. Husband and I talk or text almost every day over the phone, and we plan to meet up or have me come by once or twice a week to our family home to do family activities, as the therapist suggested. Last weekend, we went to the park and had a picnic. Ava was actually almost pleasant. She only called me stupid once, which is a huge improvement. I know many of you suggested that I stay in the family home, but the peace that I feel now with Peanut, we nicknamed the little one, I wouldn't trade this experience away. I finally feel like I can indulge and experience my pregnancy to its fullest. Yesterday, I actually felt the baby kick for the first time without immediately worrying about Ava trying to hurt it. It was magical. Some of you asked if my husband is still supporting me financially, even though I've moved out. Yes, he is. He's been sending me money for maternity clothes to replace the ones Ava destroyed and doctor's appointments. He also paid for the yoga classes, so at least he's trying in that regard. Ava and I did have one last violent fallout before I moved out. I put my hands on Ava when she came in for another swing. This was right after the talk that my husband had with her about absolutely no hitting. So I quickly grabbed her wrist. No hitting, no spanking, just grabbed her wrists to restrain her. I told her that I would not tolerate being hit, reminded her of the no-hitting rule, and asked that she please stop. She retaliated by swinging her leg up to kick me in the stomach. Think Gerard Butler. This is Sparta. Kick scene. My God, the willpower it took for me not to slap her across the face was burning, but I managed to walk away in tears, but still managed to tell her what big trouble she was going to be in for hitting again, and came straight back with her dad in tow, who gave her a big stern lecture about it. This happened a day after the first child therapy session, so my husband and I were pretty relieved that we had got the ball rolling on that. Therapy, and he supports me 100% in my decision to move out until the end of my pregnancy. His issues are that he has no idea what to do with Ava and is afraid that she will hate him if he is too hard on her. Remember that he was basically cut out of her life for almost her entire childhood until her bio mom abandoned her. It was here that I told him that I was unhappy that he appeared to be bending over backwards for Ava while neglecting Peanut. I raised the issue of hard discipline and drawing rules, and the counselor will help us out in drawing up fair house rules. Some of them include no hitting and no name-calling, eat whatever is put on your plate, dessert will only be after your meal is finished, help out with household chores, small things, in exchange for a small allowance. My husband and I both agreed that we would treat Ava fairly and discipline the same way, and that the same rules for Ava would also apply to our own child. I know we won't be applying similar rules to the baby in its toddlerhood, but we feel it's a good guide and it can show Ava the nature of house rules and that life requires some order and discipline, things that she's probably not used to having around. But we're starting that now. Ava's therapist says that she's acting out because she feels abandoned by her mother and is afraid that my husband will abandon her too, especially with a new baby coming. She suggested that my husband spend dedicated one-on-one time with Ava every day doing whatever Ava wants to do. So far, they've been doing puzzles, playing board games, and watching movies together. Apparently, it's helping a little bit, though she still has major tantrums. We haven't heard from Rent-A-Womb for weeks now. Not even a single phone call to see how Ava is doing with the transition. We both agreed that she is no longer welcome to intrude in our life. We will get some sort of ball rolling to claim for full custody now that she's proven herself to be an utterly incompetent human being. My husband has already contacted his lawyer about it. Apparently, abandoning your child with elderly grandparents who can't care for her and then not even checking in is pretty good grounds for a custody change. Who would have thought? So here I am, resting with my Peanut and surrounded by my parents, sister, full of positive vibes. My husband and I are in marriage counseling, and Ava is in therapy. We plan to take some parenting courses at the local community center, and we will be bringing Ava with us. Maybe being around other little girls and boys expecting siblings will be there, and maybe some of their enthusiasm and attitudes will rub off on her. We'll be encouraging her to make some friends. Perhaps some playdates are in order. My mom has been amazing through all of this. She watches all those nanny shows and has been giving my husband tips on how to deal with Ava's behavior. She even offered to have Ava come stay with them for a weekend so my husband could come stay with me at their house and we could have some time alone together. We haven't taken her up on it yet, but it's nice to know the option is there. I know this isn't the update most of you were hoping for. A lot of commenters seem to think I should just suck it up and deal with Ava's behavior because she's just a kid and has been through a lot. But the reality is, I'm about to have a newborn, and I can't be dealing with a physically violent 7-year-old at the same time. Maybe that makes me a bad person, but it's where I'm at right now. Edit. I've read all the PMs and the responses, and I'll do my best to read and respond to every one of them. A few things seem to be popping up over and over again, so I'm going to do my best to unify my stance. 1. I originally came on this board COP to seek help in how I should deal with the Ava situation. Many commenters suggested therapy and that I should work together with my husband. It gave me a chance to reflect on how I was thinking and I was able to process my state and emotions. This update is for those who asked for an update and for all those who wanted to see how our family dealt with it. In conclusion, I got the help and advice I needed and chose to take the one that most resonated with me. 2. I'm moving out until the end of my pregnancy with my husband's support and blessing. Make me feel bad or selfish all you want. As I said in my last post, I'm not sorry for the decision I made. I don't care about whether I'm letting Ava win. We've set ground rules and therapy for her, and now it's time to take care of me. You don't win anything against a 7-year-old child. When you have a 7-year-old violently punching and kicking your pregnant belly, then come and talk to me. I don't care if women in some countries have to lower and squat in a minefield to give birth to premature triplets. That's not the hand I was dealt, and I wish to have a stress-free pregnancy. 3. I know I've had feelings of, I want to slap the hell out of Ava. But I will not be putting my hands on her. Yes, I was beat as a child, punitively and only within reason, but I will never be beating or hitting her. I'm not proud of these feelings, but I think any human being would feel the same way when being physically attacked. The important thing is that I've never acted on them and never will. For rent-a-womb seems pretty apt for a woman who gave birth to, and then proceeded to drag said child on a wagon tour around to multiple men, while keeping her away from her bio-dad and abandoning her once it got inconvenient. I've used rent-a-womb since I've heard about and met this woman. She deserves no title of parent or mother. It's a nickname I call my husband's ex. Why can we call uninvolved dads sperm donors, but not its female counterpart? Seems apt. One last thing. A commenter asked if I've tried talking to Ava about her feelings. I have. She either ignores me completely or says, I hate you, and walks away. I've tried asking if she misses her mom, if she likes her new school, if she has any favorite foods I could make. Nothing works. The therapist says we need to give her time and space to process everything. I'm trying, I really am. The other day, I brought her a stuffed animal that I had as a child. It's a little rabbit that my grandmother gave me, and it always made me feel better when I was sad. I thought maybe it would help her too. She took it, looked at it for a minute, then threw it in the trash and told me she hates rabbits. My husband fished it out later and gave it back to me when Ava wasn't looking. He said he could tell it meant a lot to me and he was sorry she rejected it. That's the thing. When it's just me and my husband, he's supportive and understanding. He acknowledges that Ava's behavior is problematic and that we need to work on it. But as soon as she's in the room, he turns into this spineless pushover who can't say no to her. I don't know if it's guilt over not being there for her earlier in life or fear that she'll stop loving him if he disciplines her, but it's frustrating as hell. Any other advice on how to move forward from here? Has anyone else been in a similar situation? I'm open to suggestions on how to make this work when I eventually move back home. And please, if your advice is just love her like your own, save it. I'm trying, but love doesn't happen overnight. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Sister made fun of me for getting pregnant and ruined my baby shower. When she got engaged, she started posting my baby's photos online acting like the perfect aunt. I, 27F, never had the best relationship with my older sister Jane, 32F. But things really took a turn for the worse when I announced my pregnancy last year. For context, I've been with my husband Mark, 29M, for 8 years, married for 3, and we both have stable careers in finance and healthcare respectively. We'd always planned to start our family around this time, and when we found out I was expecting, our happiness knew no bounds. Jane, however, had different views on the matter. She's always prided herself on being the free spirit of the family, traveling extensively and changing careers every few years, which is completely fine. Everyone should live life on their own terms. But the moment she learned about my pregnancy, she turned it into a crusade against my life choices. It started with subtle digs about how I was throwing away my youth and settling for mediocrity. She would constantly remind me that I was only 27 and had my whole life ahead of me. These comments gradually evolved into full-blown criticism of every aspect of my pregnancy. I never expected her to understand or agree with my values, but to show blatant hate against my every action was just unnecessary. She would make snide remarks about my weight gain, saying things like, I guess you're just giving up on your appearance altogether, and, some women actually maintain their figures during pregnancy. At first, I chalked it up to Jane being Jane, but the more I tried to ignore it, the worse it got. She'd send me articles about women who'd lost their identity after becoming mothers, or forward memes about giving up on life once you had kids. It wasn't just body shaming anymore. It was like she had an active mission to make me regret my decision to have a child. I even found out she was gossiping about me to mutual friends, saying things like, "She's wasting her potential," or, "I just don't get why anyone would choose to ruin their life like that." It hurt because these were the people I had been close to, and her words had planted seeds of doubt in their minds. One friend even asked me if I was really ready for the big responsibility of motherhood, a question that felt like a punch to the gut. The breaking point came during my baby shower. My mother and best friend had organized a beautiful celebration, and everything was going perfectly until Jane showed up 3 hours late, clearly tipsy. She spent the entire event making loud comments about how I looked ready to pop. Mind you, I was only 6 months along. She commented on how my face had gotten so puffy, and how she couldn't believe I was choosing diapers over dreams. I ended up crying in the bathroom while my mother tried to comfort me. Mark was furious and asked her to leave, which she did while dramatically proclaiming that we were all too sensitive. My other friends were equally upset by her behavior, but Jane just brushed it off. For weeks after that, she would bring up the incident, laughing about how everyone needs to relax, and accusing me of being overly emotional because of the pregnancy. But it wasn't just the baby shower. There were smaller incidents. 2 things I didn't even want to acknowledge at the time because I was too exhausted to deal with them. Jane once invited me to a yoga class claiming it was her way of helping me stay in shape. But when I showed up, she spent the whole time making passive-aggressive comments about how much harder it was for me than it used to be. I left in tears feeling like I could never measure up to her unrealistic expectations of what I should be. She'd also casually drop by my house with friends of hers, treating me like a spectacle, pointing out how much my life was going to change and how she just couldn't imagine being tied down like that. These visits weren't about bonding or support. They were a way for her to flaunt her carefree life in my face. Fast forward to last month, Jane had gotten engaged to Robert, 34M, a successful businessman who came from a very family-oriented background. I'd heard bits and pieces about him through my parents, how he came from an old money family, was well respected in his field, and seemed like the perfect match for Jane, at least on paper. The engagement was sudden, though I suppose not entirely surprising given Jane's tendency to dive headfirst into new relationships and experiences without much foresight. But this time, there was a notable shift in her behavior that I couldn't ignore. Almost overnight, my sister became a completely different person. Where there had been months of radio silence, no calls, no texts, no inquiries about me or my baby, she suddenly started reaching out regularly. It began with casual texts asking how the baby was doing, followed by offers to drop off gifts. She even bought expensive baby clothes and toys, things Mark and I had never asked for nor needed. At first, I tried to convince myself that maybe she was trying to make amends, but the more I thought about it, the more it felt like her sudden enthusiasm wasn't genuine, but rather something she was doing for show. The final straw came when I discovered that Jane had been posting pictures of my daughter on her social media, pictures she had taken during one of her drop-in visits. I hadn't given her permission to share those photos, and I certainly hadn't been consulted about them. She captioned them with things like, "The world's proudest aunt," and "Look at my beautiful niece." Painting this picture of a doting, involved family member. It was infuriating because I knew the truth. This wasn't about my daughter or her supposed love for family. It was about Jane trying to shape a narrative, especially in front of Robert, that didn't reflect the reality of who she was or how she had treated me throughout my pregnancy. Then Jane invited us to dinner. It was framed as a casual family gathering, but it was clear that the main purpose was for us to properly meet Robert. My parents were already enamored with him, and they insisted it would be a great opportunity for everyone to come together. Mark and I agreed to go, partly out of obligation, partly out of curiosity to see how Jane would act in front of Robert and the rest of the family. The evening started off uneventfully. Jane was in full hostess mode, making sure everything was perfect. She introduced Robert to Mark and me with the kind of over-the-top warmth that felt rehearsed, like she was playing a role she hadn't quite mastered. Robert, to his credit, was polite and seemed genuinely kind. But there was a stiffness to the entire evening. I could sense the weight of unspoken things lingering in the air. As we sat down to dinner, the conversation shifted toward family, children, and future plans. Jane leaned into the narrative she had carefully crafted over the past few weeks, gushing about how much she loved spending time with my daughter and how excited she was to be an aunt. Robert, clearly impressed by this supposed sight of Jane, chimed in with comments about how wonderful it was that Jane was so close to her niece. He said something along the lines of, "One of the things I love most about Jane is how she's always been so family-oriented, especially with her niece. Her love for children is something that really stood out to me. Couldn't hold back anymore." I looked at Robert, and with as much calm as I could muster, I told him the truth. I told him how Jane had treated me throughout my pregnancy, how she had body-shamed me, belittled my choices, and made my baby shower, one of the most important days of my life, a living nightmare. I told him how she had mocked my decision to become a boring suburban mom, how she had texted me cruel messages about throwing away my life for a baby. The room grew tense. Jane's face drained of color, and for the first time that evening, she was silent. Robert looked genuinely shocked, looking between Jane and me, processing everything I had said. He asked to see the texts, and without hesitation, I handed him my phone, scrolling through the months of messages that documented Jane's relentless cruelty. As he read through them, the look on his face shifted from confusion to disbelief to anger. Jane said something about how she had been misunderstood, and that she hadn't meant anything by her comments, but it was too late. The evidence was right there in black and white. Robert was clearly unsure of what to say or do. He stood up abruptly, excused himself from the table, and walked out of the restaurant. The rest of us sat there in stunned silence as we watched him leave. Jane was also fully in panic mode and followed him out, but not before turning to me and hissing, "You've ruined everything. That was 4 weeks ago, and what happened next was completely unexpected." Jane hadn't spoken to me since the dinner. No calls, no texts, just radio silence. I thought maybe she was giving me the cold shoulder, but then out of nowhere she called. Her voice was shaky, and for the first time in years, she sounded vulnerable. She told me that Robert had called off the engagement. He couldn't reconcile the person she had shown him with the stories I had shared about her treatment of me. But now I don't know what to do. Jane hasn't reached out since that night, and honestly, I'm not sure I want her to. The silence from my parents hasn't helped either. They've chosen to remain completely neutral, offering no opinions or support, as if they're waiting for the dust to settle and for me to just move on. I get the feeling they're more concerned with keeping the peace than acknowledging how deeply I was hurt by Jane's actions, both during my pregnancy and now. It's frustrating because despite everything, there's this small part of me that feels guilty. I wonder if I went too far by confronting her in front of Robert. I wonder if I'm at fault for her engagement falling apart. But then I think back to the months of cruel comments, the passive-aggressive jabs, and the way she had the audacity to act like she cared just to impress someone else. And I can't shake the feeling that no matter how much my family tries to minimize it, what Jane did was wrong. So am I at fault for exposing her, or was I finally standing up for myself in a way I should have a long time ago? I wish I could say I'm sure of the answer, but right now I'm still trying to figure that out, and honestly, I could use some help. Update 1. It's been a few days since everything went down, and honestly, not much has changed. If anything, the silence has only grown louder. My parents haven't said a word to me about the situation. They haven't even acknowledged what happened at the restaurant that night, and it's becoming clearer by the day that they just want this whole thing to blow over. I thought maybe they would try to at least offer some kind of support, or even ask me how I'm doing after everything, but no. It's like they're choosing to pretend it didn't happen, hoping that somehow everything will fix itself if we all just stay quiet long enough. But what's really getting to me are the texts I've been getting. Messages from mutual friends and cousins, all of them essentially saying the same thing, that I should reach out to Robert and smooth things over. Apparently, this is all about Jane's future now. They're more worried about her relationship with Robert than they are about the pain she caused me. Like her engagement somehow justifies all of the things she did. It's infuriating. Everyone keeps talking like it's my responsibility to fix this, like I'm the one who destroyed her relationship and I should be the one to mend it. Never mind the fact that Jane spent months emotionally tearing me down during one of the most vulnerable times of my life. No, apparently the fact that I stood up for myself and told the truth is what's ruining her life. One cousin had the nerve to suggest that I should apologize to Jane, that it would be the mature thing to do. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Apologize for what? For telling Robert the truth? For exposing the way Jane had treated me, something that no one else seems to care about? The hypocrisy is astounding. I made it very clear to them, and to anyone else who's asked, that I don't believe in vengeance or holding grudges for the sake of it. But this isn't about revenge. It's about the fact that Jane emotionally hurt me at a time when I was already struggling. She made what should have been a joyful, beautiful experience, the birth of my first child, into a nightmare. How am I supposed to forgive that? What if I had lost the baby because of the stress she caused me? I was so depressed and anxious during my pregnancy, constantly worrying about her next hurtful comment or how she would twist the knife in deeper. I can't even count the number of sleepless nights I spent crying, wondering if I was somehow in the wrong for just wanting to enjoy this new chapter of my life. She robbed me of moments I'll never get back, and now everyone expects me to just brush it aside because it might affect her future. I also had a conversation with my parents the other day, though calling it a conversation feels generous. It was basically useless. I had hoped they might see things from my side, that they would at least acknowledge how deeply I was hurt. Instead, they tried to play neutral again. It was the same old song and dance. Them sitting on the fence and acting like this was some kind of petty sibling squabble. I could tell, though, from their tone and the way they skirted around the issue, that they wanted me to be the bigger person. They want me to forgive Jane, to forget everything she did, and move on because that's the right thing to do in their eyes. But I can't. I won't. I don't think they fully understand how much this has affected me, or maybe they do, and they just don't care. Either way, it was clear that I wasn't going to get any real support from them. My mom kept saying things like, "Family is family," and "You two have always had your differences, but your sisters and sisters forgive each other." My dad just nodded along, barely saying a word. It was like they were trying to sweep it under the rug. Like this was just another one of Jane's little tantrums that I should overlook for the sake of peace. But this isn't about peace for me. It's about respect. It's about setting boundaries and refusing to let someone, even family, walk all over me just because they're blood. I won't let anyone make me feel guilty for protecting my own mental health and standing up for what's right. Everyone can keep telling me to forgive and forget, but right now that's not something I can do, and frankly, I don't think I should have to. As for Jane, I haven't heard from her at all. Not a single word. Part of me wonders if she's waiting for me to come crawling back, to make the first move, like I've done so many times in the past. But this time is different. This time I'm not going to be the one to bridge the gap. If she wants to talk, if she wants to repair things, she's going to have to come to me, and even then, I'm not sure I'm ready to let her back into my life after everything she's done. So here I am, stuck in this limbo where everyone seems to think I'm the villain of the story, the one who ruined everything. But I know my truth, and for now, that's enough. Update 2. Some things have happened since my last post, and honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around all of it. I never expected any of this to unfold the way it has. But here we are. After weeks of silence from Jane and hearing nothing from my parents beyond their usual neutrality, something surprising happened. Robert reached out to me. It was completely unexpected. Mark and I were out for lunch one afternoon when we bumped into him. I could tell he had spotted us first because he hesitated before walking over, but eventually he did. I braced myself for an awkward encounter, but to my surprise, he was incredibly calm and even warm. He asked if we could talk for a moment, so we stepped outside the cafe, leaving Mark to finish up inside. Robert was polite but direct, and right away he made it clear that he didn't blame me or Mark for what had happened at that dinner. He told me that I should be at ease knowing it wasn't our fault. That was a relief to hear, honestly, because even though I knew I'd done the right thing by exposing Jane's behavior, there was still a lingering part of me that felt guilty. Maybe it was because everyone else seemed to believe I had wrecked her future, but hearing it from Robert, a person directly involved, helped lift that weight off my shoulders. He told me he appreciated my honesty that night, and that I hadn't ruined everything, as Jane had claimed. Then he started opening up about his own concerns. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who had noticed Jane's harsh and critical nature over the past few months. Robert had begun to see cracks in their relationship, and my confrontation just brought everything to the surface. He admitted that Jane's behavior toward me had shocked him, but more than that, he had begun noticing how her criticism extended to other areas of their life together. He described how Jane had become increasingly obsessed with status and material things, more interested in how much money he made than in their actual relationship. She would make offhand remarks about his career and what type of people he should be networking with, subtly trying to shape his life to match whatever image she had in her head. Robert wasn't naive. He understood that relationships involved a certain level of compromise and influence, but the more he paid attention, the more he realized Jane wasn't compromising, she was trying to control. She had even begun to criticize him in front of their friends, under the guise of playful teasing, but it was always about his appearance or the things he didn't do right in her eyes. He said it started to feel like he was being molded into someone else, someone Jane deemed worthy of her time and energy, and it wasn't just their engagement that was falling apart. Her professional life was crumbling too. Jane had recently been let go from her latest job, another one of her adventures, as my parents like to call them. Jane has always been a drifter in her career, moving from one shiny opportunity to the next, but this time it was different. She hadn't left by choice. She was fired. Robert didn't go into specifics, but he hinted that her attitude and inability to work well with others had played a big part in it. This all happened right around the same time that things between them started unraveling, which only added to the stress. With her engagement in jeopardy and her career in shambles, Jane had reached out to me. She hadn't spoken to me since the night at the restaurant, but now out of nowhere she was sending me messages. The tone was completely different from before. There were no snide remarks, no passive-aggressive digs. Instead, she sounded vulnerable, almost desperate. She was asking for support, saying that she felt lost and needed her sister. It was jarring to read because it was such a stark contrast from the Jane I'd come to expect, the one who had spent months making me feel like less than nothing. Part of me wanted to feel bad for her. Jane had always been the golden child in our family, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Growing up, it felt like she could make any mistake and still land on her feet, while I was constantly trying to measure up. And now, everything she had built, or rather everything she had carefully curated to look perfect from the outside, was crumbling around her. I could see how this was eating away at her, how desperate she must be to salvage something, anything from the wreckage. But then I remembered all the hurtful things she had said and done. I remembered sitting in the bathroom at my baby shower, sobbing while my friends and family tried to comfort me, because Jane had turned what should have been a joyful celebration into yet another opportunity to tear me down. I remembered the text where she called me a boring suburban mom, and mocked my choice to have a family, how she made me feel like I was throwing away my life for choosing happiness over her version of success. I remembered all of it, and just like that, any sympathy I might have felt for her started to fade. I'm not ready to forgive her. Not yet, maybe not ever. Even if she's going through a hard time, it doesn't erase the months of emotional damage she inflicted on me. I've been doing a lot of thinking about what it means to forgive someone, and I've realized that forgiveness isn't something you can just force because someone else is struggling. Forgiveness, if it ever comes, has to be genuine, and right now I'm nowhere near that place. My parents, predictably, are still sitting on the fence. When Jane reached out to them to tell her side of the story, they didn't really take a stance. They're sympathetic to her situation, of course they are, but they're still treating this whole thing like it's a minor squabble between siblings. They keep asking me if I've spoken to her yet, if I'm willing to sit down and work things out. I know they want me to be the one to fix things, as usual, but this time I refuse to be the one who makes the first move. I'm tired of being the one who bends, the one who's expected to smooth things over. For now, I'm trying to focus on my own family and the life Mark and I are building together. I don't have the energy to deal with Jane's mess, nor do I feel any obligation to clean it up. If she wants to fix things, she's going to have to figure it out on her own. I've spent too much time putting her needs above my own, and that's not something I'm willing to do anymore. Update 3. Hello people, after my conversation with Robert, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. It was like a weight had been lifted off my chest. For so long, I'd been carrying around this guilt, feeling like somehow I was responsible for what had happened between Jane and Robert, for the unraveling of her perfect life. But hearing Robert tell me directly that it wasn't my fault, that Jane had done this to herself, gave me a sense of peace. It validated everything I had been feeling all along. For the first time, I realized that the guilt I'd been carrying around, the pressure from my parents, friends, and cousins to fix things, was misplaced. It wasn't my responsibility to mend what Jane had broken. With that newfound clarity, I decided it was time to confront Jane once and for all. I couldn't keep letting this drag on, and I certainly wasn't going to let anyone pressure me into forgiving her or smoothing things over for her sake. So I reached out and told her I wanted to meet in person, not to reconcile, but to put an end to the mess once and for all. I needed her to know where I stood, and I needed her to hear it directly from me. When I arrived at Jane's place, she looked different. Disheveled, distraught, and for the first time in a long while vulnerable. But I knew better than to buy into her act. I had seen this side of Jane before, the side that could turn on the waterworks when things didn't go her way. This was the same person who had spent months belittling my life choices, making me feel like a failure for choosing to have a family. She might look broken now, but I wasn't going to let that change the reality of what she had done. I got straight to the point. I told her that I wasn't going to take any of the blame for what happened. This mess was hers and hers alone. She needed to own up to her actions and stop playing the victim. I made it clear that I wasn't the reason her engagement was falling apart or why her life seemed to be unraveling. It was her own behavior that had caused all of this. I could see the shock on her face as I spoke, but I wasn't there to soften the blow. I had been soft for too long. I also told her that if she wanted to make things right with Robert, she needed to apologize to him properly this time. For a second, I could feel myself slipping into a more controlling tone, almost like I was advising her on what to do, but it wasn't about controlling her. It was about giving her the chance to fix what little she had left. Whether she took that advice was up to her, but at least I had said my piece. Then came the hardest part. I told her that I didn't want her to be part of my daughter's life, at least not for a while. I needed to see real change from her before I could even consider letting her back in. I couldn't allow her to be around my child knowing that she was still the same person who had caused me so much pain. I needed her to prove that she was genuinely remorseful and willing to change, not just for Robert or for her own sake, but because she had hurt the people closest to her. Until then, I told her it wasn't worth it. Afterward, I had another talk with my parents. I'd held off for long enough, and it was time they heard the truth as well. I told them how disappointed I was in them, disappointed that they had refused to take a side when it was clear who was in the wrong. This wasn't some petty sibling squabble. This was a serious conflict, one that had left me deeply hurt. Their neutrality had only made things worse, and I made it clear that I needed them to stand by me this time. If they couldn't, then I asked them to keep their distance as well. It wasn't easy saying that to them, but it needed to be said. So here we are. Things are still a little messy, but I'm no longer carrying the guilt that was weighing me down. I'm not saying everything is resolved or that I have all the answers, but at least now I feel like I'm in control of my own narrative. I'm setting boundaries that I should have set a long time ago, and I'm finally putting my own well-being and my family first. Thank you to everyone who's followed this journey with me and offered words of support. It hasn't been easy, but I'm learning that sometimes the hardest thing to do is the right thing, and right now I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Wife left me for my brother because her astrologer said they were soulmates, but I just found out my brother paid the astrologer to lie to her, and now she wants me back. So, I, 35M, was married to my wife, 34F, for 7 years, but have been together for 10. We had a lot in common. We both loved traveling, cooking, and binge-watching shows, and even shared similar goals in life. The one place where we didn't quite see eye to eye was our beliefs. I've always been a science and logic guy. I like facts, and I've always made decisions based on reason. My wife was the same as me until 2020 hit. When we were stuck at home, she, like a lot of people, got really into astrology. It started with her scrolling through Instagram and TikTok for hours while we were stuck at home, and it just snowballed from there. First, it was harmless. She'd read me my horoscope or tell me Mercury was in retrograde when things didn't go our way. It was whatever. I didn't really care as long as it made her happy. When the restrictions were lifted, the first thing she did wasn't catch up with friends or go back to work. Instead, it was finding a good astrologer. I was kind of surprised, but I didn't fight it. I loved my wife, and if astrology was giving her some comfort or clarity after a rough time, I was fine with that. I loved her, so I wanted to respect her beliefs, even though they seemed like complete nonsense to me. I figured if this makes her happy, why not? She wasn't hurting anyone, right? I'm a reasonable guy, and everyone has their quirks, so I didn't want to be dismissive or controlling. But then it got extreme. She would spend hundreds of dollars on birth chart readings and on astrologically cleansing our home. She also started basing every little decision on what the stars told her. She'd consult the astrologer for everything from what she should eat to whether we should book a vacation. She even started saying certain times of the day were unlucky for us to talk about serious topics, so we had to schedule our conversations. She'd tell me I couldn't make important decisions because my stars were misaligned. She'd even pick fights with me because our signs weren't in sync, or because a certain planet was in retrograde. At one point, she even wanted us to move because apparently our house's energy wasn't in sync with her rising sign or something. Still, I tried to be understanding. I didn't agree with it at all, but I put up with everything because I genuinely loved her. I kept telling myself that relationships are about compromise. I figured it was just a weird obsession, and I didn't want to be the guy who told his wife what she could or couldn't believe in. I thought if I kept supporting her, she'd eventually see how unhinged she was becoming. Then came the day everything fell apart. She had me sit down in the living room face to face. She told me she had something very important to tell me. She looked uncomfortable and like she was holding back tears, which immediately made my heart drop to my stomach. I could tell something was wrong because she had been acting strange for days. I had tried asking her multiple times what was wrong, but she just brushed me off and continued to ignore me. Anyway, she started crying and told me that her astrologer had revealed something life-altering. According to the stars, I wasn't her real soulmate. Instead, my brother, 33M, was her true soulmate. The astrologer had apparently done an extensive reading and found that their cosmic connection was stronger than ours. He also told her that our marriage was doomed from the start, which she agreed with because she was convinced that was the reason we had so many disagreements. Yeah, she thought I disagreed with her opinion about wearing red on a particular day because the stars said that our relationship was incompatible. I was honestly floored. I may be able to crack a joke about it right now, but that day, I think I genuinely heard a nerve in my brain pop. At first, I thought it was some kind of joke or misunderstanding, but as I watched her sob hysterically, I realized that she was dead serious. She said that it was time for her to follow her true path with my brother. She was crying and telling me that it wasn't her choice, but that the stars had made it for her. She kept saying the universe wanted this. She also said things like, "The stars don't lie," and "This was meant to be." I tried to reason with her as much as I could. I told her that she was being absurd by letting some space rocks millions of light years away dictate her life, but she wouldn't listen to me. I then tried reminding her of the years we'd spent together and the life we'd built, but she was convinced that fate had spoken. I fought back as much as I could, but everything I said was met with something astrology-based. She said our marriage was a bad alignment and that my astrological energy was too incompatible with hers. Couldn't believe it. She was throwing away everything we had because some astrologer told her my brother was her cosmic match. It made no sense. To make matters worse, my brother seemed totally okay with it. He didn't show any surprise or hesitation when she told him what the astrologer had said. In fact, he readily took her under his wings. That was when my gut told me something was really off. My brother and I never had the closest relationship, but for him to just be cool with my wife leaving me for him, it was beyond disgusting and suspicious. My family didn't make things easier either. They bought into the astrology nonsense too and told me to accept fate and move on. They said if the astrologer was right, I couldn't stand in the way of what was meant to be. I felt completely alone. No one seemed to think it was as crazy as I did. The divorce process started shortly after that. I won't get into all the details, but it was brutal. We had to wait the mandatory 6 months for everything to be finalized. And during that time, I just had to watch my ex-wife and my brother act like they were some fated couple. It was humiliating. For the next year, I tried to move on. I went through therapy, cut off most contact with my family, and focused on work. It wasn't easy, but I was getting by. Then, about a year later, my ex-wife reached out to me completely out of the blue. I hadn't spoken to her since the divorce was finalized, and seeing her name pop up on my phone was a shock. She texted me and told me that she needed to talk to me urgently. She asked me if I was free to meet up within an hour, and honestly, I didn't want to go. I had free time to kill, but I didn't think seeing her was a wise decision, so I told her that. But she was so adamant about me meeting. She kept insisting that she needed to see me because she had some important information to share with me. I asked her to just text it to me, but she said she'd rather do it in person. Curiosity got the better of me, so I decided to meet her. When I saw her, she was a wreck. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, and the first thing she did when she saw me was start crying. She told me she'd made a huge mistake and begged for my forgiveness. I was confused and honestly didn't want to hear her out because I was only there to listen to the important information she had. After she stopped profusely apologizing to me, she finally told me the big news. Apparently, she had recently overheard a conversation between my brother and someone else. She happened to hear my brother talking about how easy it was to win her over. She waited until my brother left his phone to check who he was talking to, and she found out that he had been talking to her astrologer. She confronted him and he spilled the truth. Turns out that my brother had paid the astrologer to convince her that they were soulmates. He knew how much she believed in astrology and exploited it to get her away from me. Apparently, my brother had always been jealous of me, my job, my friends, my life in general, and he wanted what I had. In his growing resentment against me, he'd also developed an obsession with my ex-wife for years and wanted her for himself. My ex-wife was devastated. She couldn't believe she had been manipulated like that, and honestly, neither could I. She also told me that my brother had turned into a completely different person after they got together. He'd apparently become controlling, mean, and even emotionally abusive. Now she's desperate to come back to me because she has realized how wrong she was. She told me that she never realized how good she had it with me until she left me for my scumbag brother. She told me that she felt humiliated that she had destroyed our marriage because of a lie. She also told me she had already left my brother after finding out the truth and that she wanted to make things right with me. She begged me to take her back because she believed that she'd been blinded by everything. But apparently, she still loved me. I don't even know where to begin. On one hand, I'm furious. I'm furious that she fell for this nonsense. And I'm furious that my brother manipulated the whole situation. But on the other hand, part of me still has feelings for her. Even after everything, I can't lie, I've imagined what it would be like to have her back in my life. But how could I ever trust her again? I told her I needed time to think, but honestly, I don't know if I can ever forgive her. I don't even know if I want to. She made her choice, and now that the truth is out, I don't think I'll ever look at her the same way again. IDA for not wanting to take my wife back after all of this? Date 1. Wow, I didn't expect to get so many comments. I've been getting so much support and advice, and I just want to thank everyone who reached out. A lot of you have been telling me not to take my ex-wife back, and honestly, I'm leaning that way too. She made her choice, and even though it was all based on lies and manipulation, it's hard to forget how easily she threw our marriage away. A lot of people in the comments asked about my relationship with my brother, so I'll explain. Growing up, my brother and I were never close. He's always been jealous of me for some reason. If I got good grades, he would get upset. If I did well in sports, he'd complain. There were even times when he'd sabotage me in small ways, like hiding my school project the day it was due, or purposely trying to embarrass me in front of friends. My parents always said it was because he felt like he didn't measure up, and they would bend over backward to make him feel better. They'd spoil him with gifts or extra attention whenever he threw a fit, which just made things worse. My parents always had a soft spot for him. They'd make excuses for his behavior. They'd say things like he was sensitive and that he just needed more encouragement. But what they were really doing was enabling him. Every time he acted out of jealousy, they would shower him with attention instead of holding him accountable. I can't even count how many times they told me to be the bigger person and let things slide just so he wouldn't feel bad. Looking back, it's no surprise that he pulled this whole stunt with my ex-wife. He's always been competitive and jealous, so when he saw something I had that he wanted, he just took it. And instead of facing the consequences, he manipulated everyone around him, including my ex-wife, into thinking it was all destiny or whatever. It's actually sick. I also wanted to clear up something about astrology. I don't think astrology is complete nonsense. I mean, it can be fun, right? I've read horoscopes before, but I never took it seriously. For me, it's just entertainment and not necessarily something that should control your life. The problem was never that my ex-wife liked astrology. I was fine with that. The problem started when she let it dictate her decisions, like leaving me for my brother because of some cosmic connection. That's when it became an issue for me. Since my ex-wife came clean about the whole thing, I've been in a weird place. On one hand, I'm relieved that there wasn't some mystical reason why my marriage fell apart. It was just my brother being the manipulative person he's always been. But on the other hand, I'm still hurt and angry. I can't believe I lost everything because of this. My ex-wife hasn't given up on trying to get me back either. She somehow found my new address, don't even know how, and has been sending me flowers and gifts non-stop. It's awkward and honestly just makes me feel uncomfortable. Every time I see a new delivery, it just brings up all the old emotions again. I don't know what she expects. Does she honestly think that flowers are going to magically fix everything? As for the biggest update I have right now, my brother tried to contact me. Keep in mind, this man has not called me in over a year, and he had the audacity to call me only after he manipulated my ex-wife into leaving. Throughout the conversation, he acted like none of this was his fault. He said that my ex-wife was lying and that there was a big misunderstanding about the astrologer. He claimed he never paid anyone off and that the astrologer really did believe that they were soulmates. Yeah, right. I didn't believe a word he said. I've known my brother my whole life, and I know when he's lying. He's always been good at twisting things around to make himself look innocent. This was no different. He kept trying to justify what he did by saying that it wasn't his fault that the universe wanted him to be with her. He even had the nerve to say that if I was a better husband, maybe she wouldn't have turned to astrology in the first place. That was when I had enough. After that call, I completely cut him off. I blocked his number and made sure he couldn't reach me anymore. I'm done with him. It's hard enough dealing with my ex-wife trying to win me back, but I don't need my brother in my life making things worse. Cutting him off felt like the right thing to do, but it still hurts that it had to come to this. He's my brother, but after everything, I just can't forgive him. For now, I'm trying to focus on myself. I'm trying to take things one day at a time, and I know I deserve better than what either of them put me through. I'll keep you all updated if anything else happens, but for now, I'm just trying to move forward and keep my distance from the drama. Update 2. Hey everyone, I didn't expect to be back with another update so soon, but a lot has happened, and I felt like I needed to share. After my last post, where I mentioned cutting off contact with my brother, I couldn't stop thinking about what he said. His whole "it was a misunderstanding" speech got to me, and even though I didn't believe him, I started feeling this itch that I needed to know the truth for myself. Plus, my ex-wife was still dead set on the idea that the astrologer was in on it, and honestly, it was driving me nuts not having any real confirmation. So, I decided to track down the astrologer. I figured that if there was any chance to get real answers, it had to come from the source. Took me a while, but I eventually found out where he was working. I went there, and let me tell you, I wasn't playing nice. I needed the truth no matter what. When I first confronted him, he tried to act like he didn't know what I was talking about. He gave me vague responses about following the stars and cosmic connections, but I wasn't backing down. I pushed harder and told him I knew my brother had something to do with it. Eventually, after a lot of pressure, he finally cracked. He admitted that yes, my brother had paid him to tell my ex-wife that they were soulmates. He said my brother had offered him a good amount of money to make it convincing, and since my ex-wife was already super into astrology, he knew she'd believe it without question. I asked him if my brother approached him and offered him money, or if he threatened the astrologer. I needed to know to what exact lengths my brother went to ruin my life. The astrologer told me that my brother simply offered him the money. There were no threats involved. He tried to justify his taking the bribe by saying that he was financially struggling and had a family to feed, and while I empathize with that, I don't think scamming people and ruining their lives is a good way to earn money. But still, hearing that was both satisfying and infuriating at the same time. On the one hand, it felt good to finally have concrete proof that my brother was behind everything. But on the other hand, it just made my anger explode all over again. I couldn't believe the lengths my brother went to just to ruin my marriage and get what he wanted. It wasn't some cosmic connection. It was manipulation, plain and simple. And then things got even crazier. Apparently, the astrologer got spooked after I confronted him, so he decided to start running his mouth to other people. He told them all about what my brother had done to steal his sister-in-law from his brother and me. He started blabbing to clients, friends, and anyone who would listen about how my brother had basically hired him to scam my ex-wife. He started telling them that my brother threatened him to scam my ex-wife and that he was given a good amount of money, which was essentially hush money as far as I was concerned. Those were lies. I mean, the guy didn't seem very smart, so the fact that he used the "I got threatened" after I asked him if that was the case told me that he was lying. Still, I guess he did that to save his own skin, and I only found out why a few days later. It turns out that my ex-wife was so angry about being tricked that she went on a rampage and started posting reviews on every website and social media platform she could find. She essentially exposed the astrologer for being a fraud and someone who was easily bribed. And once the astrologer caught wind of it, he turned around and tried to shift all the blame onto my brother by telling anyone who'd listen that he was only following orders. He was saving his own skin and throwing my brother to the wolves. The story started spreading like wildfire. I first heard about it through a friend who saw a post that had a picture of my wife's review in a local community Facebook group. People were talking about how shady the astrologer was. Initially, they talked about how they always knew he was a scam, but eventually the conversation shifted to my brother. The few people that the astrologer spoke to came into these groups and essentially told everybody about my brother's involvement in the astrologer's scheme. It didn't take long for word to get around. Soon more people were talking about how my brother had used this whole astrology scam to steal my wife, and things just spiraled from there. The aftermath has been massive. My brother's reputation is in shambles. People in our social circles are distancing themselves from him, and he's losing friends left and right. Even business contacts are starting to cut ties with him because no one wants to be associated with someone who'd pull such a dirty move. His whole image is crumbling, and honestly, I can't say I feel bad about it. He's finally facing the consequences of his actions, and while I never expected things to blow up this way, it feels like justice in a weird way. That being said, I'm still left dealing with the aftermath he created. My ex-wife is still begging for forgiveness, and now that the truth is fully out there, she's even more desperate. She says she was manipulated, and while I get that to some extent, it's hard to look past the fact that she believed in this ridiculous soulmate story and left me for my brother without a second thought. I don't know what to do about her. Part of me understands that she was lied to, but another part of me feels like I can never trust her again. No matter how sorry she is, emotionally, I'm still all over the place. I'm glad the truth came out, but it doesn't erase everything that happened. I've spent so long feeling betrayed by the people closest to me, and while my brother is finally getting what he deserves, I'm still trying to figure out where to go from here. I feel relieved, but also kind of hollow. It's like, yeah, the truth is out, but now what? My marriage is still over. My relationship with my brother is beyond repair, and I'm left picking up the pieces. If anything new comes up, I'll let you guys know. Update 3. Hey everyone. It's been about 5 months since my last update, and a lot has changed. I figured I'd give a final update since things have mostly settled, and honestly, things have been getting a lot better for me. First off, my brother's situation. After his reputation took a major hit from all the fallout, things didn't improve for him. In fact, they got worse. Pretty much everyone cut him off, including his friends, business connections, and even some family members. His whole image as a successful guy has been completely destroyed. He's struggling to keep his business going, and I've heard he's lost a bunch of clients because people just don't trust him anymore. I thought that after everything he did to me, I wouldn't care, but I do feel a little sorry for him. It's not like I wanted his entire life to collapse, but at the same time, he made his choices, and now he's facing the consequences. Thankfully, he hasn't made any more attempts to reach out to me. But even though he didn't reach out to me, my parents did on his behalf. After everything that happened, my parents got in touch with me. They had supported my brother throughout all the drama and believed in the astrologer's nonsense just like my ex-wife did. But once the truth came out, they started to see how wrong they were. They called me and told me that they were sorry for not being there for me enough when my ex-wife left me. They apologized for not actually seeing what was going on and for not holding my brother responsible for his actions. I was honestly surprised that they had taken the time to call me and apologize, so I listened to them. The first part of the conversation went great. I opened up to them and told them how they'd hurt me while growing up by never reprimanding my brother. They apologized a lot, and they sounded so sincere that I was genuinely beginning to think that not all hope was lost for me. That was until at some point, my mom started talking about how sad it was that my brother had lost everything. I tried to keep my cool but played along with her conversation. That was a mistake. The conversation quickly turned into them asking if I could help my brother in some way because they thought that he didn't deserve to lose everything. They told me that they understood my pain, but that I should not be okay with seeing my brother struggle so much. They wanted me to help my brother by making my own public statement that said that every rumor was exaggerated and that nothing of that sort had actually happened. I think that made me finally lose it. Everything that I had kept tucked away neatly in the corner of my mind erupted. I mean, I understand that they are parents too, but it felt like they were still making excuses for him. I told them that I wasn't going to intervene to save him. I wasn't responsible for his problems, and he needed to face the consequences of his own actions. When I said no, my parents got really angry. They said I was being mean and not forgiving, and that's when I realized I couldn't keep talking about it. They were still only seeing my brother as the one who got hurt instead of seeing that he was the reason for his own mess. After that, I decided to talk to them less and just distance myself from them. I needed to take care of my own mental health, and being around people who didn't want to see the truth wasn't good for me. I don't hate my parents, but they need to accept that my brother isn't who they think he is. Since then, I've actually made a big decision. I moved to a different state. Part of me just needed a fresh start, and I realized that being around my family and the lingering drama wasn't going to give me that. I found a job opportunity that fit what I was looking for, and so far, it's been great. As for my ex-wife, well, she made one last push to get me back a few weeks after my last update. She sent me this long text about how she had completely cut astrology out of her life and how she was committed to being a better person. She admitted she was fooled, and while I appreciate that she's owning up to her mistakes, I just couldn't go back. Don't get me wrong, it was very tempting at first. We had been together for years, and there was definitely a part of me that missed the comfort of our relationship. I did love her deeply, and I also felt bad for her. She was tricked and used, and I know she's hurting too. But as I sat with those feelings, I started to realize that I didn't actually miss her as much as I missed being in a relationship. I missed the routine, the companionship, and the familiarity. But her? I wasn't sure I could ever trust her again. Even if astrology was no longer part of her life, the damage was just too deep. No matter how much she apologized, she made a choice to leave me for my brother based on a ridiculous manipulated belief, and that's not something I can overlook. I've also started dating again. It's still early, but I met someone who is very grounded and values trust and communication. We're taking things slow, and I'm not rushing into anything, but it feels good to be with someone who I can actually build something real with. There's no drama and no crazy games. It's just two people getting to know each other and enjoying each other's company. It's been refreshing to say the least. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks again to everyone that has helped me through this journey. I hope you all know that I've read almost every single comment and taken every advice given to heart. I hope you're just as satisfied with where my life landed as I am. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Family excluded me from their Hawaii trip, so I exposed my sister's secret affair and my parents' shady business deal. Now their lives are crumbling, and they're begging for my forgiveness. So, I recently did something and I'm here to ask whether I did the right thing or not. Basically, since this has pretty much ruined everything for my parents and my sister, I feel kind of guilty. For context, I, 24F, have an older sister, Melissa, 27F, and she's pretty much the golden child of the family. My parents love her to bits, and they have never bothered to hide it. If there is anything that I can learn from anybody in the world, it's Melissa. Unfortunately, I know Melissa much better than they know her, and she's not all that great. She likes to pretend that she has this picture-perfect life on social media with her perfect husband and her perfect daughter and all that, but I know the truth. I know that she has been cheating on her husband since even before they got married and that she's with him just for financial security, also because our parents and her in-laws are business partners, and their marriage was basically a business deal for the parents. From what I know though, my brother-in-law has always been very infatuated with Melissa and is serious about their marriage, but that's not been the case with her. My dad has been friends with Melissa's father-in-law since their business school days, and even though they hadn't been particularly close, they started keeping in touch after they met at a party thrown by a common friend a couple of years ago. At the time, my dad's business was not doing too well, and I guess that's how my parents came up with this very clever plan. They decided that they were going to become good friends with Melissa's father-in-law and eventually approached him with the intention of setting their kids up together. Melissa would get married to his son, and then they would approach him to come on board as an investor. In this way, the business would stay in the family, and they would also get a financial boost because Melissa's father-in-law is extremely wealthy. As sneaky as it is, I have to give it to them, it was a pretty great plan, and it did work out in their favor. Melissa and her husband were introduced to each other by their parents. They dated for a couple of months, and then at the insistence of their parents, they got married 2 years ago and had their first child last year. I don't know about her husband, but I know for a fact that Melissa had been taught everything about my parents' plan, and she knew that she was being used to help my dad's failing business. But she didn't care because she was marrying into a family, and that's all that mattered to her. I was aware of everything that was happening, but unfortunately, I couldn't exactly do anything about it. Even though I was disgusted by how unscrupulous my parents and my sister were being, it's not that I didn't want to tell my brother-in-law anything and warn him about what he was marrying into, but honestly, if I did that, I knew that I would be screwing up my future as well. It was really selfish of me, but I had to keep my mouth shut. It's not like I hadn't protested against it. I knew that what they were doing was wrong, and I had even told them that I was going to rat them out if they didn't stop the wedding from happening. But my parents made it very evident to me that if I spoke up against this, then they would take away my college fund. Back then, I was just 19. I didn't have much money of my own, and I intended on getting a master's degree as well, so I really needed the financial help, and that's fine. Even when I found out that Melissa had been having an affair, I still stayed quiet, and it cost me everything. I still got to study, that was not the issue, but it cost me all my friends and my mental health. A couple of weeks before the wedding, Melissa's boyfriend and affair partner, Leo, reached out to me and told me that he knew that Melissa was engaged, but they had been hooking up forever now, and she had been telling him that she would break off the engagement at some point, but she never had, and he was getting desperate. Leo had been Melissa's boyfriend in high school, but they had broken up in their senior year, and before the wedding I understood that she had reconciled with him, but because her husband was a lot richer than he was, she had decided to get married to him even though she was continuing to see him behind her husband's back. It was really messy, and I told Leo that I would try to talk to her and find a way out of this because I could see that he really loved her, and he was so desperate that he had actually reached out to me and confessed everything. But when I spoke to Melissa about it, she told me to stay out of it and made me block Leo everywhere. Unfortunately, Leo also had a younger sister who was in the same year as me, and she knew everything, so she told all my friends about what I was doing and made it out to be like I was on Melissa's side and I had helped ruin her brother's life. Because once Melissa got married, Leo couldn't take it and started drinking relentlessly. Of course, I can't exactly blame his sister for believing that I was a part of this because my behavior had been like that. I hadn't been strong enough to take a stand for myself, and after Leo's sister told everybody in our year about Melissa and my involvement in the whole thing, people started cutting me off left and right. Even my closest friends, the people who had known me from literally elementary school, started cutting out of their lives too. They didn't even offer any explanation. They didn't have to because I knew what it was about. People started ghosting me, and I started distancing myself from my college friends as well because I was so disappointed with everything that was going on. I couldn't even blame anybody else. This was all my own fault. So I did the only thing that I could possibly do. I threw myself into my academics and I did exceedingly well, but unfortunately my mental health went for a toss, and I have been severely depressed for the past 2 years. Nobody knows about it, but I've seen my therapist and I have been clinically diagnosed. I try to mask everything, and I don't even have a relationship with my family anymore because they disgust me, but I needed the money, so I have still maintained a civil relationship with them. However, all of that went out of the window last week when I was scrolling through Instagram, and I saw Melissa posting a bunch of photos with our parents, and from the background and stuff, I could tell that this was a celebration of some sort. After going through all the slides and the caption, I realized that my parents had gone to Hawaii to renew their vows for their 30th marriage anniversary, and pretty much everyone they knew had been invited, including my sister obviously. The only person who had been left out? Yeah, it had to be me. I was obviously shocked because I had no idea this was even happening. And then, of course, there was the disappointment that I hadn't even been invited. I knew that I wasn't particularly close to my family, but this seemed like a huge insult, especially considering the fact that I had kept all their secrets for so many years, even at the cost of my own friendships and mental health. Granted, I did stand to gain something from keeping those secrets, but even then, I felt like the least they could have done was at least pretend that they cared about me. I was hurt and angry after I saw those pictures without me in them, and in the heat of the moment, I decided to wait for them to come back, and then I would post all the dirt that I had on them. 2 days later, when they did come back, I did exactly that. I made a post exposing all of them, but especially Melissa, because I knew that it would hurt my brother-in-law, and there was no way that he would continue to stay married to her after he found out that he had been cheated on God knows how many times. About 3 days back, after I finally made that post, my family finally started paying attention to me, but it makes no difference to me because I know what I did, and I have no regrets. It's going to cost me because I'm pretty sure that now I'm going to have to arrange for my own tuition money since my parents are definitely not going to be funding me anymore. However, at least I have the satisfaction of knowing that I got back at them, and karma is really hitting back. Because from what I know, Melissa's husband has decided to file for a divorce because after I made that post, I even sent him irrefutable proof of Melissa cheating on him. Leo had sent me some screenshots of his conversations with Melissa back when he was trying to get me to help them out, and that's what I forwarded to my brother-in-law after 2 years of keeping them to myself. And of course, because my brother-in-law has been hurt, his parents are not taking this lightly either, and basically my parents have had their retirement plans wrecked by their favorite daughter because Melissa's in-laws are no longer going to remain on board as investors, and whatever business dealings they had, they are going to be backing out of it. So of course it's going to mean huge losses for my father because this is definitely going to affect his standing in the business, and all I can do is laugh at their condition right now because I think this was a long time coming. They have been texting me. They're trying to reach out to me in whichever way they can, but I've continued to block them everywhere. But the only thing that has made me feel guilty so far is a message that I received from Melissa this morning. She told me that whatever I was doing, it was even more disgusting than whatever our family had been up to so far, but it just goes to show that I'm not different from them. I'm just as vindictive and petty in the fact that I'm only doing this because I hadn't been invited to the vow renewal ceremony. It's literally just pathetic. She accused me of ruining her marriage, and now even her daughter is going to suffer because of my pettiness. Melissa also said that it was crazy that I was acting so holy and stuff when in reality, I had also benefited from everything that I was calling my family out for, and that was true. Like I said, the only reason I was able to get through college and get my bachelor's degree without having to work or take out a student loan was because of everything that my parents and Melissa had planned. And even now that I am pursuing my master's degree, my parents have been covering my expenses, but of course after this, I'm going to have to figure something out on my own. However, whatever Melissa has said about this, it's really made me think about my part in all of this. It made me feel really guilty because even though I knew that everything that was going on was wrong, I never spoke up about it until recently because I wanted to ruin things for everyone else simply because I was being sidelined. So, IDK, did I do it for trying to take revenge on my family and exposing them even though I had been living off of them until recently? Edit. Hey, I know a lot of people are confused as to whether Melissa ended the affair with Leo after she got married or not, since I had mentioned that she had been cheating on my brother-in-law for the past 2 years. And to clear your doubts, yes, Melissa had indeed continued to see Leo after she got married, even until recently. I know that because even though Leo stopped contacting me after Melissa made me block him, his sister unfortunately didn't. For the past 2 years, she has made it a point to remind me that in spite of the way Melissa has treated him, Leo still keeps going back to her, and she keeps me in the loop, not out of kindness or whatever. She just wants me to know that her brother is throwing away his entire life after my sister, and she thinks that I'm an equal part of this, so she keeps tormenting me as well. I could block her or mute her, but I haven't. It just didn't feel appropriate, and I feel like I was punishing myself in some way. So, I know that they are still seeing each other, and I know that Leo is still hitting the bottles because his sister tells me about it regularly. It's all pretty dramatic, but well, that's how I know. And also, just to be clear, I don't expect any sympathy. I don't expect people to feel bad for me because I've been suffering from depression or whatever, because I know that I could have been honest with my brother-in-law and his family and told them what my parents and Melissa were planning, that they were just intending to use them for their own benefit, and Melissa did not actually love her husband because if she did, she wouldn't have been cheating on him with Leo even after her daughter was born. I do admit that I have been selfish and maybe I'm no better than my family at all. I'm totally prepared to accept that, but what I don't need to know is whether what I did recently was a bad move or not, because my motives were to get back at my parents and Melissa for pushing me to the sidelines constantly. I was not doing this for some noble cause. I was not doing this because I wanted to do the right thing. I was just doing it because I wanted to get back at these people. I know it sounds petty, but that's what it really was, and I'm ashamed of it. I feel guilty about everything, and it's really important for me to know whether I did the right thing or not, or if I should really feel bad about it. Update 1. Hi, so thank you so much for all the comments and the input that you guys had. For everyone who was kind and gentle with me, thank you. For everyone who wasn't, thank you for that as well because I guess I needed both sides anyway. I have decided to stay away from my family because I think that is best for me. That's something that I should have decided a really long time ago. But anyway, better late than never. From what I know, my parents and Melissa are in a very chaotic situation right now, and they are doing everything in their power to save Melissa's marriage because they cannot let this go down the drain, and I can totally understand that. Their entire livelihood depends on this. Melissa has never worked in her life. She probably doesn't intend on doing so in the future either, and she needs her husband to stay with her so she can continue to live off of his money. Plus, she also has a daughter to think about, and that's probably the only part that I feel bad about. As for my parents, they need Melissa to stay married to her husband and work things out because they don't want her in-laws to back out of their business dealings. That's going to seriously harm their retirement plan, and I'm assuming that they can't afford that, so they are going all out to keep Melissa and her husband together. For that reason, they have thrown me under the bus entirely and have made several posts about how I'm only doing all of this because I'm jealous of them, and I have mental problems. Well, I can't deny the latter part. I do suffer from depression, so I guess that's true, but I'm definitely not jealous of my parents or Melissa. I'm pretty happy with who I am as a person because I know that I'm still better than them. At least I feel remorse about everything that I have done wrong, which I don't think they do, and I think they never will either. Anyway, the rest of the family has reached out to me and told me that they do believe me, and they are not speaking to my parents or Melissa. Everyone is pretty shocked by the revelations that have been made in the post that I put up, and I still haven't taken it down even though I have blocked my family. I'm content that even though I was pretty late, at least I've done the right thing now. And I had already been applying to jobs so I could start paying for stuff myself. I guess I'm also going to start trying to take out a student loan or something so I can continue pursuing my master's degree. I know it's going to be hard, but I've taken the easy way out earlier and I didn't feel too good, so I guess I'm going to have to take the difficult way out now. Update 2. Hey, it's been 3 days since my last update, and today all of a sudden Leo's sister actually reached out to me. But instead of trying to remind me that Melissa had ruined Leo's life, she thanked me. She told me that she had heard from Leo what was going on with Melissa, and apparently, Melissa had told Leo that she was not going to be able to see him for some time given everything that was going on in her life. She had told him that after this, she was either going to stay committed to her husband if it worked out with him, or she was going to leave him and commit to Leo instead. All he had had to do was wait for her, and they ended up fighting because Leo said that he had waited for her enough. The only reason he had allowed himself to be treated like that all these years was because ultimately he had hoped that someday Melissa would leave her husband and come to him, But now the fact that she was even considering leaving Leo behind and making things work with her husband just because he was financially better off, he couldn't take it anymore and he needed commitment from her. So of course, Leo is not as innocent as his sister had made him out to be. But he was just deluded and foolish, and of course he was in love with Melissa, so that played a huge part in his ridiculous behavior. But even he is beginning to see how Melissa is as a person right now, and they had a huge fight after which Melissa told him that she would not be seeing him again. And Leo's sister decided to reach out to me and thank me because she thinks that I finally did something good by speaking up about the truth, and eventually, it led to Leo breaking up with Melissa for good. He's obviously still very upset about it and has been drinking non-stop, but his sister is hopeful that at least now he is going to see Melissa for what she really is and stop trying to get with her and being a home wrecker. And honestly, I hope the same for him too because both Melissa and Leo need serious help. I think it's better if they stay away from each other even if Melissa ends up getting divorced from her husband. As a matter of fact, I think it will be better for everyone if Melissa and Leo stay away from literally everybody because both of them are clearly unstable and are not fit to be in a relationship. Here I was thinking I was messed up, but I strongly believe now that my entire family has something very wrong going on with them, to be honest. Anyway, that was about Melissa and Leo. Now moving on to my parents, they are still talking crap about me to everybody in the family, but nobody is buying it because all along I've always been known as the quiet kid of the family, and I've never been one for drama, so literally nobody has any reason to doubt me. And besides, in my post, I had even talked about my own shortcomings. I hadn't made myself out to be a perfect person or whatever. I had admitted that I had screwed up as well, and I had been selfish too, but at the same time, I had also made a lot of sacrifices for my family, and yet they couldn't see that. They only appreciated Melissa. If I actually had to lie about my parents and Melissa, I wouldn't make myself look like the bad guy either. I would make myself look completely perfect, which I didn't, and I think that's a good enough reason for my relatives not to doubt me. From what I'm getting to hear, Melissa's husband has refused to try and work things out with her, but she is refusing to give up on the relationship. She and our parents are still insisting that I am crazy and jealous, and that's why I've been trying to ruin everything for my family. The reason I know about all of this is because Melissa is quite close to a cousin of ours, and this cousin happens to be really big gossip, just like Melissa. So this cousin of ours has been talking to me as well because she wants to know my side of the story too. I don't really enjoy gossiping, but this is the only way I get to find out about what's going on with my parents and Melissa, so this is a small price to pay. Anyway, the point is that things are not really looking up for Melissa right now, and I'm pretty sure that she is going to get divorced. It's shocking that even after so much has happened, my brother-in-law hasn't blocked me, and neither have my in-laws. I think I'm pretty much the only person from our family who they haven't blocked yet, but I'm guessing it's only because they expect me to post something else, and they don't want to miss out on that. And even though they haven't blocked me, they haven't reached out to me or whatever either. It's actually good in a way that they haven't because I don't think I'll be able to speak to my brother-in-law since I know that I could have prevented all of this from happening, and I didn't, and that's going to eat away at me forever. But well, I've dug my grave and I've had to lie in it as well. I can't change the past, but at least I'm doing the best that I can right now, and I'm just hoping that it's enough for everyone. Update 3. Hi. So it's been 3 weeks since my last update, and I have kept in touch with my cousin. She has been keeping me in the loop about everything that was going on with Melissa and my parents. And finally, 2 days back, she told me that Melissa and her husband were headed toward a divorce. Apparently, so far her husband had been staying in a hotel with their daughter and had refused to see her or entertain any of her attempts to clear the air or get back together. And then last evening, he came back home and picked Melissa out of the house in spite of her many requests not to do so. Melissa had been devastated, but ultimately she had to come back home to stay with our parents, and she had ended up venting to our cousin about everything. Mostly, she had just blamed me for whatever was going wrong because not only had she lost her husband and the life that she had built for herself, but she also lost Leo, and she apparently really loved him. I don't understand how she was planning on carrying on this charade forever, staying with her husband and having kids with him just to maintain a certain kind of lifestyle, but behind his back, she would keep seeing Leo, and she genuinely thought that this was fine and she would never get caught. Granted, she didn't actually get caught for the first 2 years, but she had to know that ultimately something or somebody would break, and everything would come out into the open. I don't understand how she's blaming me for all of this because even if I hadn't said anything, At some point maybe Leo or his sister might have said something to her husband. The only reason Leo had kept quiet all along was because he had expected that at some point Melissa would leave her husband and be with him instead. And that's why he had been holding on to that hope. And the only reason his sister had never said anything was because obviously, she was highly doubtful that anybody would even believe her. And on top of that, she would end up ruining her relationship with her brother forever if she said anything to Melissa's husband to ruin their marriage. But apart from that, a lot of people knew. Nobody just ever said anything because they didn't want to get caught up in the crossfire just like me, and yet things did come out eventually. But I don't think I'm the one to blame here. If she didn't want her life to get ruined, she probably shouldn't have screwed it all up for herself. And even now, she's being a total idiot by venting to her cousin in spite of knowing that she's total gossip, and literally everything that she has been telling our cousin, it has been reported to me. I don't understand if she is really that naive or if she's just plain stupid. But it's whatever. She totally deserves this. Update 4. So, the divorce is finally happening. Melissa has announced it on social media, and of course, she couldn't let it go without blaming me for all of it. In the caption itself, she said that very unhappy she was going to have to let go of her marriage of 2 years just because I decided to spread some nasty rumors and lies about her and ruin the relationship between the two families. So I'm guessing that my parents are also not going to have anything to do with Melissa's in-laws anymore because they are backing out of all their business dealings. That means their retirement plans are going to take a serious hit, but I guess they have a backup plan as well because from what I heard from my cousin, Melissa is planning on asking for an insane amount of alimony and child support. She hasn't been working ever since she got engaged, so she's probably going to get her way, but I really hope that she doesn't. In fact, if her soon-to-be ex-husband asks me to testify against her in family court or something, I'd gladly do it. I have a feeling he might because he still hasn't blocked me, and in a very cryptic way, he has actively been liking everything that I have been posting even though it hasn't had anything to do with my family recently. And before you guys jump the gun, I'm pretty sure he doesn't like me or whatever. We have always had a very cordial relationship, but that's about it. Anyway, I know that the divorce is going to be pretty ugly, and he just wants to keep all his options open, which is probably why he is trying to keep in touch with me because he might need my help in the future, and when he does need it, I'll be glad to offer it. As for myself, I'm still going to continue my education no matter what, and I've also heard back from a couple of places. The interviews I have had so far have mostly been positive, and I'm hoping to get a job at a decent place in a couple of weeks maybe. I've also spoken to a couple of my relatives, and one of my uncles has agreed to co-sign and take out a student loan with me so I can continue my education because now I know that my parents will obviously not be helping me out anymore. Of course, if I default on any payment, I'll have to pay him back, but I'm not worried about that. I have my mind made up, and I know for a fact that I'm going to do well for myself in the future. I've also started therapy because I know that I have a lot to deal with emotionally, and I'm going to try and fight my way out of everything that I'm going through. I have wallowed in self-pity for long enough. It's about time that I start taking charge of my own life, and I'm going to start now. Thanks for reading. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Dad kicked me out of my room for his new stepdaughter after my mom passed away. Then he found out Mom left me half the house in her will, and now he's begging me to come back. My mom passed away about 6 months ago after a long battle with cancer. She was my rock, and we had an incredibly close bond. Losing her was devastating. I'm 19, and up until recently, I had been living with my dad, who until this happened was my other rock, my source of stability. My parents' marriage wasn't perfect, but it was functional enough that I thought we were happy. Losing my mom made our little family seem so much smaller, and for a while it was just Dad and me figuring out life. Then, 3 months after Mom's death, my dad dropped a bombshell. He was getting remarried. I was stunned. Felt like the ground had shifted beneath me. To me, it seemed like he was rushing things. I mean, just a few months ago, we were grieving together, and now he was ready to move on. He claimed that this woman, let's call her Jane, had been an old friend, someone he had reconnected with shortly after Mom got sick. I wanted to be open-minded. I understood that everyone grieves differently, and maybe this was his way of coping, but deep down, it felt wrong. It felt like he was disrespecting my mom's memory by jumping into a new relationship so quickly. When I tried to express this to him, he launched into a speech about how he deserved to be happy after everything he had been through. I felt my heart sink. I didn't want to start a fight, so I kept quiet. I was trying to be mature, to avoid conflict, but inside I was a complete wreck. It was so hard to watch him move on while I was still processing my own grief. It felt like he had replaced my mom with someone new, and I didn't know how to deal with those feelings. Jane moved in almost immediately, along with her daughter Emily, who was 17. I didn't know much about Emily, but I could see how close she and her mom were. They seemed to have this bond that I felt completely left out of. Jane was always pleasant, smiling, and trying to be friendly, but I could sense she was trying to assert her dominance over the household in subtle ways. Suddenly, there were new house rules, changes to our routines, and shifts in how everything worked. The familiar comfort of home was gone, replaced by an uncomfortable atmosphere that made me feel like a stranger in my own space. At first, I tried to go with the flow, thinking maybe this was just part of adjusting to the new living arrangements. But the more I watched Jane and Emily settle in, the more alienated I felt. They had their own little world, and I was just an outsider looking in. It was hard to adjust to the fact that my dad had chosen to prioritize their needs over mine, especially when I was still reeling from losing my mom. Then the real bombshell dropped. One day, out of the blue, Dad sat me down for a serious talk. I could tell by his expression that this wasn't going to be good. He told me that since Emily was moving in, he thought it would be best if I considered moving out to make space for her. I was in disbelief. He actually suggested that I gift my room to Emily because she needed it more. He told me I could stay at my uncle's place temporarily while they adjusted to the new living arrangements. I wanted to scream and shout, but I remembered how my dad reacted the last time when I shared my thoughts on his marriage, so I stayed calm, on the outside at least. I chose not to argue or get emotional and simply said okay. I packed my bags, called my uncle, and moved out. My uncle welcomed me with open arms. He was as shocked as I was when I told him what happened. It was only when I left that the reality of the situation hit me. My dad had chosen his new wife and stepdaughter over me, his own child, only months after my mom had passed away. The betrayal stung deeply. For a few days, I didn't hear from Dad. I assumed he was relieved that I had left without putting up a fight. It seemed like Dad didn't care enough to reach out, and I figured he was happy to have me out of the house. After all, he got what he wanted, right? Emily got my room, Jane got her new life with Dad, and I was out of the way. I remember sitting in my uncle's guest room, staring at my phone, half expecting some sort of apology or explanation, but there was nothing. It stung more than I expected, like I'd been completely erased from his life. I kept telling myself I did the right thing by leaving and trying to focus on getting settled at my uncle's place and keeping up with my college assignments. Then, out of nowhere, the silence broke. One day, my phone started blowing up with calls and texts from Dad. At first, I ignored them, assuming it was more of the same adjusting talk he'd given me before, but then it became relentless. One missed call after another, message after message. He was apologizing, asking me to come home, saying things could go back to normal. His tone had completely changed from when I left, and I started to get suspicious. Why this sudden desperation? I didn't respond at first, but the sheer volume of messages made me curious. Why was he so eager to get me back now? What had changed? Finally, I caved and texted him back asking what was going on. That's when he told me about the letter. He tried to downplay it, but the more he talked, the more I realized something significant had happened. He mentioned receiving an official letter from my mom's estate attorney, which didn't make much sense to me at first. I knew my mom had a will. She had mentioned it in passing when she was sick, but I hadn't thought much about the details. Apparently, this letter was a big deal. My dad explained in a roundabout way that my mom's will had been finalized, and according to the will, my mom had left her share of the house to me. That means my dad and I are now co-owners of the house, me owning half and him owning the other half. So while Dad still has his share, he can't sell the house or make any major changes to it without my consent. I guess he had assumed everything would go to Dad given that they were married, but she had made sure I was taken care of, and it hit me hard just how much thought she had put into it. Even though I wasn't 21 yet, being 19 meant I had a legal stake in the house. I hadn't realized how significant it was until Dad started explaining that he couldn't make any major decisions about the property without my consent. This news completely shifted the dynamic. Now that Dad and Jane know they need me to stay in control of the house, they've been spamming me with calls and texts nonstop. It's not just them either. They've roped in the rest of the family. I'm getting messages from aunts, uncles, and cousins, all saying I need to be the bigger person and go back home for the sake of family harmony. It's overwhelming. I'm a full-time college student, and I already have so much on my plate with classes, assignments, and trying to balance a part-time job. The worst part is how Jane has started messaging me too, acting all nice and trying to guilt me into returning. She's offered to let me share the room with Emily now, as if that's supposed to make up for everything. It feels so disingenuous, like they're just trying to smooth things over because they realize they've lost control of the situation. They didn't care about my feelings until they realized they needed me, and now they're trying to act like we're all one big happy family. Frankly, it's a lot to deal with. I didn't ask for any of this, and all I really wanted was some time to grieve and process everything after losing my mom. I'm stuck in this mess, feeling like I have to fight just to hold on to what my mom wanted me to have. Now I don't know what to do. The house is legally half mine, but I'm not sure if I want to go back. Update 1. Hi guys, first of all, thank you so much for all the support and advice in the comments. Reading through your personal experiences has honestly been one of the few things keeping me sane these past few days. It's comforting to know I'm not alone in dealing with complicated family stuff. For those asking, my uncle, let's call him Uncle James, is my mom's brother, not my dad's. He's been nothing but supportive, and I'm lucky to have him as a place to stay while I sort all this out. So there's been another development. While my dad's side of the family has been nonstop in their attempts to get me to come back, something interesting happened that I didn't see coming. My mom's lawyer paid me a visit to Uncle James's house. I wasn't expecting it, and honestly, it kind of caught me off guard. I had only met the lawyer once before at the reading of my mom's will, but I didn't really think I'd be hearing from him again, at least not anytime soon. When he showed up, my first thought was that something had gone wrong with the house or my legal rights over it, but it turned out to be something completely different. Apparently, my mom had set up a small trust fund for me, and the lawyer was there to explain the details. My Uncle James is the trustee, which means he's in charge of managing the trust until I'm old enough to handle it on my own. The trust isn't anything huge, just a small amount of money that my mom had set aside for emergencies or for my future needs. I guess she wanted to make sure I had something to fall back on, even if things got complicated with Dad and the house. The thing is, I'm not sure if my dad even knows about this trust. Mom must have set it up quietly, and since Uncle James is the trustee, it's possible Dad wasn't aware of it at all. That realization made me feel even more protected by my mom. It's like she had planned for every possibility, even the ones I never imagined. The trust fund isn't a game changer in terms of my financial situation, but it's comforting to know that I have some extra security, especially with everything that's happening right now. I haven't told my dad about the trust, and honestly, I'm not sure if I should. He's been blowing up my phone with messages, and I've had calls from all sorts of relatives, cousins, aunts, uncles, all trying to convince me to come back. At first, they were being nice about it, telling me that Dad misses me and that we should patch things up. But when I didn't respond right away, the tone started to change. Some of them started guilt-tripping me, saying things like, "Your dad's under a lot of stress," and "Family is more important than a stupid room." I even had one of my aunts tell me that I was being selfish for taking my mom's side and that I needed to move on since she was gone now. It's been overwhelming, to say the least. But here's the kicker. While all this was going on, Uncle James told me that Dad had been trying to reach out to him too. Apparently, Dad called him and tried to act like everything was fine, asking if I was doing okay and if Uncle James could convince me to come back home. James said it was the most awkward conversation he'd ever had. Dad was trying to play the concerned parent, but Uncle James wasn't buying it. He knows how Dad has treated me, and he made it clear to Dad that I was welcome to stay with him for as long as I needed it. It's pretty clear that my dad's side of the family is all on his team. They're trying to wear me down, and I have a feeling it's not just about wanting me back for family reasons, it's about control, just like with the house. I've been thinking a lot about whether Dad knows about the trust, or if he's just focused on the house for now. Part of me wonders if the trust would complicate things even more if he found out. Right now, he's trying to guilt me into coming back, But if he knew about the extra money mom left me, would that change his tactics? Would he suddenly try to get involved in managing that too? I have no idea, but the thought is nagging at me. Anyway, my lawyer has advised me to keep things quiet for now, especially since Dad is already so fixated on the house. Legally, he can't force me to move back, and he definitely can't sell the house without my agreement. But I can't help but feel like this whole thing is going to get messy before it gets better. Uncle James has been a rock through all of this, and I'm so grateful to have him in my corner. I don't know what I would have done without him, especially with how manipulative my dad and his side of the family have been. For now, I'm taking things day by day. I'm focusing on school, trying to keep up with my assignments, and just taking a breather from all the drama. Update 2. Every time I think this whole situation has reached its peak of awfulness, something worse happens, or I learn something that just turns my world upside down even more. I thought things couldn't get any worse after leaving my dad's house, dealing with the family's non-stop messages, and then finding out about the trust fund my mom had set up for me, but I was wrong. Something happened yesterday that really hit me hard and changed the way I look at everything that's been going on. One of my cousins from my dad's side, let's call her Sarah, asked to meet up for coffee. I wasn't sure what to expect since most of my dad's side has been pressuring me to go back home, but Sarah and I have always been pretty close. She's a bit older than me, and we used to hang out a lot when we were younger, so I figured maybe she just wanted to check in and see how I was doing. When we met up, things were a bit awkward at first. Sarah's mom has been one of the main people pressuring me to reconcile with my dad, so I wasn't sure where this conversation was going to go. But then out of nowhere, the conversation took a completely unexpected turn, and Sarah dropped a bomb on me that I wasn't prepared for. She hesitated at first, saying she wasn't sure if she should tell me what she knew, especially since her mom had told her to keep quiet about it. But she couldn't hold it in anymore. She felt I needed to know the truth. Sarah told me that my dad had been cheating on my mom for a long time, even before my mom got sick. I was completely floored. I had no idea this was going on. Sarah said she had known for a while but didn't want to get involved, mostly because her mom had told her not to. She explained that one day before my mom passed away, she saw my dad out at a restaurant with Jane, and it wasn't just some casual lunch. Sarah said they looked like a couple. They were sitting close together, talking, and it was clear there was something going on between them. At the time, Sarah didn't think too much about it. Maybe she didn't want to believe the worst, or maybe she didn't want to create drama. But now, looking back, it all started to make sense to her. The part that hit me the hardest was when Sarah told me she eventually gathered the courage to tell my mom about what she had seen. I can't even begin to imagine how devastating that must have been for my mom. She was already going through so much with her illness, and on top of that, she had to deal with the knowledge that my dad had emotionally, and maybe even physically, moved on before she was gone. Sarah said that after she told my mom, she felt guilty, like maybe she had made things worse, but at the time, she thought it was the right thing to do. She believed my mom had the right to know even if it caused her pain. Ever since then, though, it's been weighing on Sarah's conscience, and she struggled with whether or not telling my mom was the right decision. When Sarah told me all this, everything started to click into place. I think this might be why my mom made the decisions she did in her will. She probably knew about Dad and Jane, and maybe she didn't trust him anymore. Maybe that's why she left her share of the house to me instead of leaving everything to Dad. It was her way of protecting me and making sure that if Dad tried to move on too quickly with Jane, I wouldn't be left with nothing. It hurts to think that my mom was dealing with so much behind the scenes. She must have known that her time was limited, and on top of everything, she had to worry about Dad betraying her trust. I feel like I should have known, but I guess I was too focused on trying to cope with losing her to see the signs. Now, all these little things are starting to make sense. The way my mom would sometimes look at my dad with this sadness in her eyes, the way she seemed so focused on making sure everything was in order before she passed away. I think she knew that she had to take care of me because she couldn't count on Dad to do it. After Sarah told me all this, I felt sick to my stomach. It was like my whole perspective on my parents' relationship had been flipped upside down. I always thought they had a strong marriage, and I never would have guessed that Dad was capable of something like this. I don't even know how to feel about him anymore. Part of me is furious that he could betray my mom like that, and part of me is just devastated that my mom had to carry that secret with her while she was sick. Now I'm starting to wonder how much Jane knew about all of this. Did she know my mom was still in the picture when she got involved with my dad? Was she just waiting for my mom to pass away so she could move in and take over? It makes me feel even more certain that I made the right decision by leaving the house. I don't want to be around people who treated my mom like that, especially not in the home that she worked so hard to create for us. Since learning this, I felt even more conflicted about what to do next. I still own half of the house, but I don't know if I ever want to set foot in it again. How can I live there knowing all of this? How can I even look at my dad after finding out what he did to my mom? And now it makes sense why Jane was so eager to push me out of the house. She probably saw me as an obstacle to fully taking over the life she wanted with my dad. Uncle James has been incredibly supportive through all of this. When I told him what Sarah said, he wasn't surprised. He said he always had a feeling that something was off with Dad after my mom got sick, but he never had proof. He's been encouraging me to take my time with making any decisions about the house, and he's even offered to help me talk to a lawyer if I want to take any legal steps. I'm not sure what I want to do yet, but knowing I have people like Uncle James and Sarah in my corner makes me feel a little less alone in all of this. For now, I'm trying to process everything and figure out what my next move should be. I don't think I can forgive my dad, at least not anytime soon. He's been pretending to be the victim in all of this, acting like I'm the one tearing the family apart. But now I see that he's been hiding so much from me. Update 3. Hi guys. I guess this might be my final update. So, after everything that's happened, I decided I needed to have a final conversation with my dad. This wasn't because I wanted to fix anything or make things better between us, but I felt like I needed to say my piece and make it clear that I didn't want any part of the life he and Jane were building. It wasn't easy to make that decision, but after finding out about the affair and realizing how much my mom had been through, I knew I couldn't just stay silent and walk away without closure. I messaged my dad telling him I wanted to meet and talk. He was quick to respond, clearly thinking this was my way of coming back and reconciling. He and Jane had probably convinced themselves that I just needed time to cool off and that I'd eventually come around. When I showed up at the house without any bags or signs that I was moving back in, I could see the surprise on both of their faces. They were expecting me to be ready to move back in, but that wasn't happening. I sat down with them in the living room, and the atmosphere was tense. Dad tried to start with some small talk, asking how I was doing and if I was ready to move forward. Jane just sat there kind of fake smiling, clearly uncomfortable but still trying to act like everything was normal. It took everything in me to stay calm and not let my anger take over, but I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to let them control the narrative anymore. I told Dad straight up that I knew about the affair, that I knew he had been with Jane while Mom was still alive, and that someone had confirmed that for me. I didn't want to bring my cousin Sarah into this matter because her mom wouldn't have liked that at all. The look on his face was priceless. He was completely caught off guard, and for once he had nothing to say. Jane went pale and tried to deny it, stammering something about how it wasn't what it seemed, but I wasn't interested in hearing her excuses. I had already heard enough from Sarah to know the truth. I explained that I wasn't there to argue or try to get an apology. I just wanted them to know that I wasn't coming back. I told them that I didn't trust them, that I didn't want any part of this life they had built on lies, and that I wasn't going to pretend like everything was fine. The house, half of it at least, was mine now, and I wasn't going to let them push me out, but I also wasn't going to live there. I told them I'd figure out what to do with my share later, but for now I didn't want any contact with them. The one thing that was clear was that no decision regarding the house should be made without me. Of course, Dad tried to play the victim, saying that I was tearing the family apart, that I was overreacting, and that I needed to think about the future. He even tried to guilt me by saying how hard it had been for him after Mom died, that he needed someone to lean on, and that's why Jane came into the picture, but I wasn't buying it. He made his choices, and now he had to live with them. I wasn't going to feel bad for him when he had clearly disrespected my mom long before she passed away. As for Jane, she just sat there quietly after I called them out. It was clear that she wasn't going to take any responsibility for what had happened, and I didn't expect her to, honestly. I don't care what happens between the two of them at this point. They've made their bed, and they can lie in it together. After I said my piece, I got up to leave. I could tell Dad was still in shock. He probably thought I'd come crawling back. But that was never going to happen. I walked out of the house feeling lighter than I had in weeks. It wasn't easy, but it felt good to finally have some closure, to say what needed to be said, and to let them know that I wasn't going to be part of their lives anymore. Since then, I've blocked them both on social media and stopped responding to any messages from my dad's side of the family. It's been quiet for the most part, although I've heard from Sarah that Dad's been telling people I'm the one who's acting out and being unreasonable, but honestly, I don't care. People will believe what they want, and I'm done trying to explain myself to anyone. As for the house, I haven't made any final decisions yet. My lawyer and Uncle James are helping me figure out the best way to handle it, but I've been thinking about either selling my share or renting it out. I don't want to be tied to that house anymore, but I also don't want to give Dad and Jane any easy wins. If they want to stay there, they'll have to deal with the fact that I still have control over part of it, and I'm not going to let them make any big changes without my approval. In the end, I think this whole situation was a wake-up call for me. I've learned that sometimes the people you trust the most can let you down in ways you never expected, but I've also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I've made it through this mess with my head held high, and I'm ready to move forward on my own terms. As for Dad and Jane, well, I guess they got what they wanted, but in the end, they've lost something to me, and maybe in time they'll realize that some things can't be undone. Karma has a way of catching up with people, and while I'm done with them, I can't help but feel like they'll eventually have to face the consequences of their actions. For now, I'm focusing on myself, my future, and the people who have truly been there for me through all of this. I'm not looking back. I just want to take a moment to thank all of you for your support, advice, and kind words throughout this whole ordeal. Reading your stories and knowing that I'm not alone in this has meant more to me than I can express. Your encouragement has helped me stay strong and stand my ground, and for that, I'll always be grateful. Thanks for being there when I needed it most. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Wife lost weight and started going to the gym. Then I found something suspicious when I caught her cheating on me. My mom decided to side with her and defended her actions. I've been happily married to my wife Susie for the past 4.5 years. From the start, we've had great communication, and over time our connection has only deepened. Sure, there might be the occasional disagreement like in any relationship, but nothing major or drawn out. We've learned how to respect each other's space and opinions. One of the things I'm especially proud of in our marriage is our strong, intimate connection. We maintain a healthy sex life, which has helped us stay close emotionally and physically. We've also kept a tradition of going out for dates every Friday, no matter how busy life gets. It's something we both look forward to. Professionally, I've been working long hours to provide for both of us, especially since Susie has been out of work for almost 2 years now. When she first lost her job, I'll admit it was a bit challenging. I had to pick up extra hours at work, and it felt overwhelming to manage both of our expenses on my own. There were times I worried about how long I could keep up with the financial pressure, but thankfully my hard work paid off, and we've gotten to a much more stable place now. Susie, on her part, has made several attempts to get back into the workforce but has always been rejected. Hence, with time, she has come to terms with her situation and transitioned more into the role of a stay-at-home wife. Although she does occasionally work as a freelancer here and there, her income isn't really significant. Susie and I don't have any children, so her day-to-day routine primarily revolves around household tasks like cooking and cleaning. She's very dedicated to keeping our home in order, but she also enjoys relaxing in front of the TV and watching her favorite series. I would always encourage her to get out of the house more often and do things she enjoys outside of our home, whether it's meeting up with her friends or even joining a gym to get some exercise. But the truth is, she rarely ever took me up on these suggestions. As a result, because of her sedentary lifestyle, Susie gained a fair bit of weight over the years. Now let me be clear, this was never an issue for me. I love Susie no matter what, and her weight had no impact on how I felt about her. To me, she was still the wonderful, loving person I fell in love with, and I made sure she knew that. However, one evening when I came home from work, I found Susie in a state of complete distress. She was crying, sitting on the floor. I rushed to console her and asked what was wrong. She silently pointed to the pile of clothes on the floor, most of which had been angrily thrown out of her wardrobe. She told me, while crying, that they didn't fit her clothes anymore. She revealed, between her tears, that she didn't even recognize herself in the mirror anymore due to her weight gain. I did everything I could to console her, reassuring her that she was still the same amazing woman I had married and that her weight didn't change that. I even suggested we go shopping together so she could buy some new clothes that would fit and make her feel better. My intention was simply to ease her frustration by getting her outfits that she felt good in, but my suggestion backfired. Instead of feeling supported, Susie got even more upset. She started crying even louder, insisting that I didn't understand her at all. She said she didn't want to wear bigger clothes because doing so felt like admitting defeat. She didn't want to acknowledge the weight gain at all. I felt genuinely bad for Susie that night. Seeing her in so much pain over her weight gain made me realize that the issue was more than just about clothes or appearance. It was about how she felt about herself. Wanting to help, I gently urged her to acknowledge the weight gain so we could then tackle this together. I suggested that we could start waking up early every morning and go for a run together. It wasn't just about exercise. I wanted to show her that we were a team in this and that I was fully committed to supporting her. I also pointed out to her that we'd stop bringing in unhealthy snacks like chips and cookies during grocery shopping. I knew those were her usual go-tos, but I figured if we both shifted towards healthier meals and snacks, it would be easier for her to stay on track. At first, Susie seemed reluctant. I could tell she wasn't fully on board, and it made sense. This was a big change, and she was already feeling vulnerable. But after some time and with a bit of encouragement, she agreed to give it a try. Over the past 10 to 11 months, we've completely transformed our lifestyle together. In the beginning, it was tough for both of us, especially for Susie. She had to adjust to a whole new routine of waking up early with me and fitting in exercise where she hadn't before. But little by little, things started to click. As the weeks went by, Susie began to find her rhythm, and I was amazed at her determination. I could see her confidence gradually returning as she became more active and started making healthier choices when it came to her mealtime. Then about 2 months ago, she took a huge step and joined a gym to start strength training. Unfortunately, because of my long work hours, I wasn't able to join her at the gym, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that she had taken this step on her own, and I couldn't have been prouder of her decision. She was stronger, healthier, and most importantly, happier. I slowly watched her blossom into someone who is far more outgoing and confident. She started going out more frequently, made new friends at her gym, and even started experimenting with her looks. In many ways, she had become the best version of herself, and I was so proud of my wife. When I got promoted at work, I wanted to celebrate this big achievement with her. With my promotion came more financial security, and I was excited about the future for us. So I planned a special evening out, hoping to make it a memorable night for both of us. During the date, I brought up something to Susie that had always been a part of our long-term plan: starting a family. With the promotion, I felt that the timing was perfect for us. I told Susie that now more than ever we were in a stable position financially and it was the right time to try for kids. I thought she would be happy, especially since this had been our plan all along, and we had talked about it many times in the past. But as soon as I mentioned it, I noticed a shift in her mood. She grew quiet, which was unusual, especially given the fact that she had always told me how much she wanted to become a mother. I continued telling her how this promotion was a stepping stone toward achieving our dream of becoming parents. I was excited and even told her that once she got pregnant, I would make arrangements at work to reduce my hours so I could be more present at home and help her out with everything. I was fully committed to being a more present dad and husband. Despite my enthusiasm, Susie didn't seem to share the same feelings. Her expression grew more somber as I spoke, and she stayed unusually quiet. Seeing the gloom on her face, I knew something was off. Concerned, I asked her what was wrong, wanting to understand what was going through her mind. This is when Susie revealed to me that she was having second thoughts about having kids. I was caught off guard. It wasn't what I had expected to hear at all. She continued to tell me this just wasn't the right time for kids and that we should be enjoying our youth and freedom for a few more years at least. I tried to ask her for specific reasons why she felt this way so suddenly, but she didn't want to elaborate. Although I was a bit heartbroken, I assured her that I was willing to put our plans on hold at the moment and that we could talk about this topic again in the future. For the rest of the evening, we continued talking about other things. In hindsight, I realized now that I should have encouraged her to open up more about what was really going on in her mind at the time. I thought I was respecting her space by not pressing the issue, but looking back, I now see this as the first indication that something was starting to go wrong in our marriage. Over the next few weeks after our conversation, I noticed that Susie began to grow distant from me. It wasn't sudden, but a gradual shift. Small things started to change in our relationship. For example, Susie stopped having dinner with me every night like she always used to. Instead, she would eat earlier in the evening and then spend most of her nights in bed, glued to her phone or watching TV on her own. Susie began skipping our usual date nights, something we had always made a priority. When I would ask her to reschedule and spend time with me instead, she would argue that she had already made plans with her new friends from the gym and did not want to cancel them. I knew that her newfound social life and confidence were important to her, so I tried to be as supportive as possible, but at the same time, it was hard not to feel hurt by the growing distance between us. Then things worsened. One night when she was out with her friends, Susie had gone out like she usually did and normally would be back before 11 p.m. And if she was running late, she'd always let me know by text. But this time, the clock kept ticking, and she didn't come home at her usual time. I called her phone around 11:30 just to check if everything was okay, but the call went straight to voicemail. It was getting late, and I couldn't sleep, so I stayed up hoping to hear the door open or at least get a call back from her. Then finally, around 1:30 a.m., the doorbell rang. I practically jumped up from my bed and rushed downstairs. When I opened the door, what I saw left me stunned. Susie was almost limp, smelled strongly of alcohol, was barely able to stand, and was hugging a man for support. There were other people standing around her. I invited them in as I realized that these were the people she usually hung out with. The man who was helping Susie walk gently put her down on the sofa, where she immediately passed out. I was confused and concerned looking at my wife, so I asked them what had happened. One of the girls stepped forward and explained that they had partied a bit too hard that night as it was her birthday and that Susie had a little too much to drink than usual. I was a bit surprised to hear this since my wife never drank more than a glass of wine with me. The girl continued to assure me there was no reason to worry and that they had made sure to bring her home safely along with her phone and handbag, which they handed over to me. I appreciated their gesture, but seeing Susie in such a state, so unlike her usual self, was unsettling. As I looked around at the group of people in my living room, I quickly realized that they were all much younger than me and Susie. I had never met them before and asked if they were in their early 20s. They all nodded in confirmation. One of the guys introduced himself as Mark and mentioned that they all went to the gym together, which is how they became friends with Susie. I nodded and thanked them for bringing her home. After they left, I felt a deep sense of unease. Seeing my wife passed out on the couch like that after what seemed like a wild night out with people so much younger than us left me with so many questions. The next morning, I gently confronted my wife about everything. I asked her about the night, specifically about how she had ended up in such a state, but instead of showing concern or regret, Susie tried to brush it off. She told me she was just enjoying herself with her friends and was now left embarrassed because she couldn't handle her drink. She laughed as if it wasn't a big deal and assured me that it wouldn't happen again. Still concerned, I asked her if something else had happened that night, if there was any possibility someone had spiked her drink or taken advantage of the situation. But Susie shook her head and told me that I needed to stop overthinking. She assured me that everything was fine and that her friends wouldn't do anything like that. She insisted it was completely her fault for drinking too much and she had simply lost control. I then asked her more gently why she had been drinking so frequently. She started to look irritated as she answered that apparently this is what young people usually do when they hang out, and she wanted to fit in. She admitted that she had always limited her drinks to 3 or 4 shots while hanging out with him, and to cover up her tracks for me, she would even come back home and quickly brush her teeth, so I wouldn't notice the smell of alcohol. That admission surprised me. It wasn't just about her drinking. It was the fact that she had been intentionally hiding this part of her life from me. I started to wonder what else I might not know about. Trying to piece everything together, I asked her if this was the reason why she never wanted me to meet her friends. Maybe she thought I would judge her, or maybe she felt embarrassed about it. But instead of explaining, Susie rolled her eyes in exasperation. She snapped back saying it wasn't mandatory for me to meet her friends and that there was no reason for me to make a big deal about it. She confessed that she could not make friends with anyone older at the gym, while this group of people were very welcoming to her, and she liked hanging out with them. My intention wasn't to accuse her of anything. I calmly reassured her that I had no issue with her making new friends or who they were. I was simply curious about why she hadn't told me sooner. From that point onward, Susie's behavior only became more concerning. Now that she had admitted to going out drinking with her friends, it seemed like she no longer felt the need to hide any of her actions from me. In fact, she began dressing in much more revealing outfits whenever she went out. Short skirts, low-cut tops, and high heels. What bothered me even more was that she began coming back home later and later. Susie would come back in the early hours of the morning, always completely drunk and barely coherent. It was becoming a pattern, and I couldn't help but feel increasingly weirded out by her behavior. This wasn't the woman I had married. In addition to her late-night outings, my wife also started neglecting her responsibilities around the house. She stopped cooking meals altogether, something she used to enjoy doing for both of us. There were no more groceries in the fridge because she would forget to go shopping. With my long work hours, it became increasingly difficult for me to manage both my job and household duties. I was already feeling stressed at work, and now I had to take care of everything at home too. It frustrated me, especially since Susie didn't seem to care about the impact her growing behavior was having on our lives. One day, I decided to confide in one of my close friends about what was going on at home. I laid it all out. Susie's late-night drinking, her neglect of the house, and how distant she had become. I was expecting my friend to offer me some reassurance, but instead, he hit me with a dose of harsh reality. He pointed out that these were all massive red flags, things I had been overlooking because I still wanted to believe the best about Susie. He told me bluntly that it was very possible my wife was cheating on me and that I needed to stop seeing her through rose-colored glasses. That conversation shook me to my core. The idea that Susie might be unfaithful had never fully crossed my mind, but once my friend said it out loud, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Her erratic behavior, the late nights, the secrecy, it all started to make sense in a way I didn't want to admit. I grew wary, and from that moment, I began paying much closer attention to her actions. One thing I noticed immediately was how much time she spent on her phone. She was constantly texting or scrolling through social media, but the way she did it felt different, more secretive. She would often hide the screen when I was nearby or quickly change apps if I came into the room. It made me suspicious. I knew that if I wanted to find out the truth, I would need to get my hands on her phone. That night, after Susie came home drunk and passed out on the bed, snoring like she often did after her nights out, I made my move. Quietly, I slipped out of bed and grabbed her phone from her bag. My heart pounding in my chest, I hurried out of the room, careful not to wake her, and found a quiet corner in the house to check her phone. Felt strange and wrong, but I had to know the truth, even if it meant going behind her back. The first hurdle was getting into the phone. Susie had recently changed her password, and I didn't know it. For a moment, I panicked, but then I remembered that Susie was forgetful. She likely would have changed it to something she could easily remember. I began trying different significant dates or birthdays, our anniversaries, but none of them worked. Then on a hunch, I tried her mother's birthday, a date I knew she held close to her heart. To my surprise, it worked. I had unlocked her phone. With shaky hands, I started going through her messages, my stomach in knots, fearing what I might find. At first, there was nothing out of the ordinary, just casual conversations with some of her gym friends, including a few with Mark, the guy who had helped carry her home that one night. But the more I scrolled, the more my heart sank. There it was, plain as day, messages between Susie and Mark that went far beyond just friendly banter. They were flirtatious and intimate, and then there were messages and photos exchanged between them that left no doubt that Susie had been having a physical relationship with him. The texts went back weeks, maybe even months. In one of their most recent conversations, they had discussed skipping the gym and going to a nearby motel instead to have their usual fun time. My heart dropped when I read that. It was clear that Susie had been cheating on me with Mark all along. I quickly took photos of the messages, making sure I had enough evidence in case I needed it later. I was disgusted, heartbroken, and furious all at once. The trust one had in my wife, the woman I had loved and had been married to for years, was shattered. I decided that I needed more than just text messages. I needed to catch her in the act, to confront her with undeniable proof. The motel plan they had discussed in their texts gave me the perfect opportunity. I knew what I had to do next: catch my wife red-handed. That is exactly what I did the following day. With the weight of the previous night's discovery still heavy on my shoulders, I decided to take action. I knew that Susie and Mark had planned to meet up at the motel. I left work early and drove to the motel where I knew they would be, hoping to catch them in the act. When I arrived, I saw Susie and Mark pull up in separate cars, just as I had anticipated. They were laughing and seemingly in high spirits, completely oblivious to what was about to unfold. I took photos of them as they made their way into the motel, my hand shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. After about an hour, they emerged from the motel. The sight of Susie with her hair disheveled and a look of carefree contentment on her face made my blood boil. I got out of my car and walked towards them, holding my phone up to record the whole scene. My intention was to capture everything on film so there would be no doubt about what was happening. When Susie saw me approaching, her expression changed in an instant. She froze, her face going pale as she realized what was about to happen. Mark, on the other hand, remained silent and looked visibly scared, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. At that moment, I completely lost control. My anger and hurt were all-consuming, and I shouted every insult and name I could think of. I was livid beyond words. I told Mark he could have her, that I was done with her cheating broke ass. Susie started to beg, tears streaming down her face as she ran after me, but I got into my car and drove away, my heart pounding in my chest. I managed to get home before Susie did, and I quickly packed a few essential items: clothes, personal belongings, and anything else I thought I might need. Then I headed to a nearby hotel, needing a place to escape and collect my thoughts. That night, fueled by a mix of anger, confusion, and a bit of alcohol, I made the rash decision to post the video on Facebook. I wanted everyone to know how my wife had shattered our marriage, to expose the truth so she could not go around acting like a victim. I don't remember much after that, but the next morning I woke up to a barrage of missed calls. My phone was lit up with notifications from friends, family, and of course, Susie. Feeling overwhelmed, I decided to call back my parents first. I didn't want them to worry, and I needed to hear their voices. When I reached my dad, he expressed his disbelief that Susie had been unfaithful and offered his full support if I wanted to leave her. I felt reassured by his support, but then I called my mom, and she had a very different take than my dad. While she acknowledged my pain and the reason for my reaction, she told me that she wanted me to carefully think things over with a much clearer head. I was taken aback as she continued to emphasize that Susie was my wife and that family is family no matter what. I argued that Susie had cheated on me, so she was no longer going to be my family. My mom argued that sometimes accidents like this can happen in a family and that not everything is so black and white. I asked her what she meant by accident, and my mom responded cryptically that people can't always stay loyal in their marriages for a long time and that sometimes mistakes can happen. Confused and hurt by her words, I pressed further, asking her if she had ever cheated on Dad, but she remained quiet, and that has only confused me further. Since then, I've been plagued with unsettling thoughts that my mom might be hiding something. No good parent would ever encourage their child to work things out with a cheating partner. I can't help but wonder if my mom is concealing something from us, which is why she's pushing me to reconcile with my cheating wife. Am I wrong for suspecting my mom? Or am I overthinking this because I have just been betrayed by my wife? Update 1. To clarify further on why I am suspecting something is wrong, my mom has always been incredibly supportive, just like my dad. As their only child, I've been raised with love and encouragement, and my mom has always stood up for me, never even letting anyone bully or talk down to me. Yet, For some reason, she believes Susie deserves another chance despite the infidelity. After reading some of your comments, I'm now considering getting a DNA test done. I don't want to discuss this with my dad before the results are in. If the test confirms that I'm biologically related to both my parents, then I suppose there's nothing to worry about. Also, Susie has been bombarding me with texts and voicemails begging for forgiveness. She admitted that she felt very flattered when Mark showed interest during her gym sessions. She said it felt weirdly sexy to be desired by someone younger and that she just couldn't resist him. Despite her pleas for another chance, I'm beyond caring at this point. Update 2. Thanks to some of your suggestions, I've reached out to a lawyer to begin the divorce process with my ex. Since Susie cheated, I know I won't have to pay her alimony and will also be asking her to move out of my house soon. Now coming on to the most important part of the update, my dad was a bit curious when I asked him to join me for the DNA test appointment this week. I simply told him it was to check for any potential genetic disorders that might run in the family, and he didn't press further. I also asked him not to mention it to Mom, telling him that it might make her worry unnecessarily about potential conditions before the results came out. He agreed to keep it quiet without thinking a lot. It breaks my heart to lie to him, but it's the only way for me to uncover the truth without alerting my mom beforehand. I'm still waiting on the DNA test results for now and will update once I know more. Update 3. Well, I guess we were all right. My DNA test is out, and it has proven that I'm not biologically related to my father. I couldn't stop crying when I found out and drove straight to my parents' house. My dad's eyes nearly popped out when he read the results, and my mom went pale. I won't go into the ugly details because I'm too angry and shaken to write them all out, but my mom finally broke down in tears after she kept denying it initially and admitted that she had an affair with a guy 35 years ago. She got pregnant with me from that affair, but since she was also intimate with my dad, she hoped it might be his. When I was born with brown hair, unlike both of my parents' blonde hair, she suspected strongly that I was the other man's child. However, not wanting to destroy her marriage, she ended things with him quickly and kept the secret hidden. My dad had never questioned her as he had never thought he had a reason to and had always accepted me as I was. After my mom's confessions, my dad was understandably furious. There were a lot of tears and harsh words exchanged, but to keep things short, my dad and I are now staying in my hotel room. He looks numb and hasn't spoken to me much. I feel immense sympathy for my dad because I somewhat understand what he's going through. I can't believe that both my wife and my mother turned out to be such frauds. Update 4. Sorry, it's been almost a month since my last update. First of all, I want to reassure everyone that my dad hasn't abandoned me after the DNA test. He loves me and has made it clear that I will always be his son no matter what. I feel really grateful to have a parent like him. However, he has lost all forgiveness for my mom. He asked her to move out despite her desperate pleas and even threatened to throw her belongings out if she didn't leave peacefully. In the end, she went to stay with her sister. I have refused to even look at her as I am so disappointed by her deceit. My dad has met with his lawyer this week to proceed with his divorce. Now coming to my ex, Susie has been served with divorce papers and has been asked to move out. Obviously, she didn't take this lightly and had the audacity to show up at my office begging for another chance. I yelled at her publicly for being so shameless, warning her that if she ever came near me again, I'd get a restraining order. She has no other choice left but to move out. For those asking, I've removed the video of catching her red-handed from my Facebook account for now, but I have stored it securely so I can use it as evidence during our divorce. That snake isn't getting a dime from me. For now, both my dad and I are deeply hurt and heartbroken, but we're determined to heal and move forward. We're focusing on rebuilding our lives and finding strength in each other as we move on from our cheating partners. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Adoptive daughter left us when she met her bio parents at 20, but they kicked her out when she got pregnant. She showed up at my door crying and begging to let her live with us. Hello Reddit, this situation that I'm in right now involves my 20-year-old adoptive daughter. Let's call her Jackie. My wife, 44F, and I, 45M, adopted Jackie at birth after struggling with fertility issues for almost a year and a half. It was a closed adoption, which meant that we did not have any contact with her biological parents after her birth, and we had no idea where they were or what they had been up to for the past several years. After she turned 6, we told her that she was adopted since we wanted to be honest with her and build that trust. Besides, she also looks quite different from us, and I'm sure that as she grew older, she would have questions about it, or worse, she might even get bullied for it, and it would be better for her to be prepared with the real truth. Telling her the truth did not really change anything. But when she turned 17, she started talking about wanting to meet her biological parents. We were skeptical about it because at the time we were having a very difficult time dealing with stuff. As we mentioned earlier, she looks quite different from us, but honestly, that's an understatement. She actually just doesn't look anything like us at all since she has dark hair, and my wife and I are both blonde. My wife has green eyes, I have blue eyes, and her eyes are dark brown. We know about recessive genes and stuff, but high schoolers can be really mean when they want to be. Some kid from her high school started the rumor that she's probably an affair baby, and it was a silly, stupid rumor, but for some reason it spread like wildfire and she started getting bullied at school. Most people were aware of the fact that she had been adopted, but they seemed to completely ignore that just so they could make fun of her. She put up a strong front against that and ignored all the bullying for months until her boyfriend at the time broke up with her because people had started making fun of them together. Her boyfriend at the time had been Hispanic, and since Jackie had dark hair and eyes, people started saying they might have even been related given my wife's so-called promiscuity, even though Jackie was very obviously Caucasian like us. Getting dumped was the last straw for her because her entire year had turned against her, and she had very few people in her corner. The rumors and bullying had gone out of control, and we wanted to intervene and speak to the staff at her school so they could do something about it, or maybe even change schools, but she refused to let us get involved in any way whatsoever, fearing that it would only make everything worse. For a couple of months, we let her deal with stuff on her own, but after her boyfriend dumped her, we decided that we had had enough and we needed to stand up for our daughter whether she liked it or not. We spoke to people at the school and talked about the kind of impact all the bullying was having on her mental health so that the principal of the school and the counselors would do something. However, I guess it made things worse for her because after that Jackie told us that while people had been bullying her earlier, now they had started acting like she was insane and would snap if they said anything to her at all, so they would just avoid her and make weird faces whenever she was around. She had become a social outcast, and she started blaming us for it, even though we did not have the wrong intentions and only wanted the best for her. But we had underestimated how cruel high schoolers can be, and I guess I have to admit we messed up there. She was really mad at us for several months, but then things started getting better at school and subsequently her mood started improving at home as well, and we felt like she had started to forgive us. By the time her birthday came around, we started planning something really big so she would forgive us completely, and we could go back to having a normal relationship instead of the distant one that we had been forced into having because she was upset. On her 16th birthday, we threw a huge party for her, invited all her friends, and went all out for her. She was really happy because later on, it helped her live down the bullying that she had to face just a couple of months ago since high schoolers are fickle as well. They don't really remember what they put people through and can become friends just as quickly they can become foes. We thought things were going well, but a couple of weeks after her birthday, she told us that she wanted another gift from us if we wanted her to forgive us completely, and that gift would be putting her in contact with her biological parents so she could stand a chance to get to know them. And why exactly has she been put up for adoption? Because these were the questions that she had been wondering about for many years, and now she was finally old enough to ask. She wanted to know the answers. We were a bit skeptical about it because things had just started improving at home between us and Jackie, and all of a sudden, she wanted to be put in touch with her biological parents. My wife and I were scared that something might go wrong, and she might not want to stay with us anymore after she found out about her biological parents in case they were better than us somehow. Since we were still reeling from the aftermath of getting involved in the school bullying fiasco, we were a little afraid of what would happen in all honesty. But of course, we were not going to stop her from doing what she wanted. So we were very encouraging and put her in touch with the adoption agency so she could speak to them. After waiting for a couple of weeks, we heard back from them and were told that her biological parents were not ready to meet her yet, and so she couldn't get to them that year. Jackie was quite disappointed and she felt rejected, so we were there for her every step of the way, and in a couple of months, she forgot about it. All of us went back to our normal lives and tried not to think about that phase anymore until recently when the adoption agency reached out to her and told her that her biological parents were finally ready to speak to her. This happened in the beginning of this year, almost 7 months ago, and it came as a huge shock to us. We had all honestly forgotten about it, but when Jackie heard from the adoption agency that her biological parents were ready to speak to her, she was quite happy. Seeing her happy, we were thrilled for her as well because her well-being meant more than anything to us. Naturally, my wife and I were still quite nervous about what would happen, but we had faith in her. We knew that she was our daughter and she would never hurt us. But we were wrong because 2 months after meeting her biological parents for the first time, she decided to leave home so she could go stay with them. Jackie had decided not to go to college because she wanted to work, and she didn't want to waste money on rent, so she had been staying with us ever since she had graduated high school. Initially, she had told us that she would just drop 1 year, and then she would start applying to colleges, but now it had been almost 2 years since she graduated high school, and yet she had no plans of applying to colleges or even moving out, even though we are assuming that she had saved enough money. She had been working as a receptionist ever since she had graduated, and since she has never had to pay for rent or groceries or other utilities, we had figured that she had enough money at least to move out and start living independently, and we had been trying to talk to her about these things for quite some time. So before she had been contacted by her biological parents, my wife and I had been trying to get her to do something about her life because we thought that becoming a freeloader was nothing to be proud of, and the least she could do was at least try to pay rent to us or contribute in other ways, and apparently that was a huge part of what had influenced her decision to leave, as she had mentioned in the letter that she had left behind for us. After she had met her biological parents for the first time, she refused to tell us anything about them so that she would be able to respect their requests to keep everything confidential and private, and we did not try to pry further. She started meeting them more frequently, and after 2 months she left home abruptly in the middle of the night, and the only thing that she left behind was that letter that I mentioned earlier, in which she had said that she had spoken to her parents about her situation right now, and they had encouraged her to come to stay with them, and she had accepted. Apparently, she had been telling them about how difficult it has been becoming for her to continue living with us because we would constantly pester her telling her to get a job or start applying to colleges or just do something or the other, and it was overwhelming for her because she felt like she was already doing enough, and it also made her feel guilty to say no to us because we had raised her and stuff, but she also did not want to pay rent or anything else since she believed that it would be a waste of her hard-earned money since we were still working, and it wasn't as if we were incapable of being able to afford the kind of lifestyle that we wanted and had to rely on her for rent. In the letter, she had written that she knew that we wanted this for the best because we thought that pushing her to go to college or to start becoming financially responsible was a good thing for her, but we were making the same mistake that we had made during the time that she was getting bullied in high school by interfering since it was only making her annoyed at us and making matters worse. So now she had decided that she needed some time away from us, and because her parents had offered to let her stay with them, she was going to take them up on that offer and didn't want us to contact her for a while until she felt ready to reach out to us again. It was a bit shocking because we knew that she hadn't exactly liked the fact that we were trying to get her to do something instead of just being a freeloader because we thought that at her age not even trying to improve her situation and relying on her parents for support was not a good look, especially when she had told us that it was going to be her plan to be a receptionist and earn some money for a couple of months after graduation so she would be able to build some capital for the future, and then she would either start working towards a promotion or would start applying to colleges, and yet neither of those things had happened. We thought that we were pushing her towards doing something good for herself because we didn't want her to become stagnant, and we believed that she should have either completed her education or started taking her work more seriously. If we had known that it would have become such a big deal, we wouldn't have done that. But anyway, after she left, we tried really hard to contact her, but she never responded. We tried calling her, messaging her, and even emailing her, but we have been blocked from everywhere. We were very upset about it for the first couple of months, but as time went on, we started becoming resentful. My wife and I realized that everything that we had done so far, it had only been with the best intentions at heart. When we tried to stand up for her by speaking to the school authorities about her getting bullied, we only wanted to make things better for her, and we genuinely believed that it was going to work. Besides, her approach of just letting things go on the way it was had clearly not been working. Even recently, we were only pushing her to do better for herself because we knew that she was capable of it, and she was wasting her potential by just sticking to the receptionist job and not even trying to do better. It wasn't even as though she was in dire need of money, we were always for her, but she had become quite financially irresponsible after she had started earning since all she would do was come back from work and then go out with her friends. Thankfully, she had still been able to save, but she wouldn't have any idea on how to properly handle her finances until she started living realistically, like paying rent, utilities, and other expenses. That was literally all that we had been trying to reach her, and she had started acting as if we were the most selfish parents on earth to try to do that, so much so that she felt the need to run away from us and stay with her biological parents. In the past couple of months, we had been thinking about her behavior, and my wife and I had realized just how selfish she had been. So by the time that she returned, we were quite happy with her already, and then she dropped a bomb on us by telling me that she was pregnant. When she finally showed up, this happened last weekend, and when my wife opened the door, Jackie had been standing outside with her bags, and it was obvious that she had been crying. When I went to the door, she told us that she had come back for good, and she was never going to leave our side again because she had realized that we wanted the best for her, and we were the only parents that she would ever need. We were kind of shocked and had nothing to say, so she went on to tell us that she had been living with her biological parents for the past 5 months, and everything had been going great initially, but then she got pregnant. She found out about it herself last month, and she refused to tell us anything more about the pregnancy. But she told us that she was scared of telling her parents, so she had it for a couple of weeks and then told them last week itself. They had a huge fight because she had been hiding the pregnancy and also because they did not approve of the fact that she had gotten pregnant without being married first. And to make matters worse, she didn't even intend on getting married and still wanted to keep the baby. So they had made it very clear to her that they were not going to support her and that she needed to leave, which is why she had packed up her things and come back here, because she knew that no matter what we would definitely accept her because we were her actual parents. She started hugging my wife and crying and told us that she had made a huge mistake by leaving us, but now she was never going to do that again, and she had learned her lesson. However, I was not buying it, so I decided to bring out the letter that she had left for us from my office. I handed it over to her, and I told her that she should read it again and think about the things that she had said in her letter. She had said that she bought some space away from us, and now we want to be able to give her that space, so she needs to go back and figure out her own life. Then I slammed the door shut, and we didn't hear from her after that until this morning when my wife received a message from Jackie. She had unblocked us everywhere and told us that she could understand that we were angry, but we also needed to realize that she was in a very different space of mind when she left and just got carried away because of the novelty of the situation, since her biological parents were being very nice to her, and she was tired of us nagging her constantly. However, now she has realized that we always had her best interest at heart, and as her parents, it's our day to give her a second chance to prove that she's not entirely selfish like we think her to be. My wife wants us to give her a second chance, but I don't know. I don't feel like it's the right thing to do right now. ITA for not wanting to let my pregnant adoptive daughter move back in with us after she left to stay with her biological parents for a couple of months. Update 1. Hey, thank you to everybody who commented on our original post. I spoke to my wife about what I was thinking, and I told her that I still did not trust Jackie fully. Besides, we knew for a fact that she had been working, she had money, so she could easily just look for a place of her own. If she needed help with money after the baby was born, we would definitely be willing to help her with that since we're not that heartless. But right now she needs to prove to us that she's not coming back just because she has been kicked out by her biological parents. Plus, we also need to know who the father of the baby is and what the deal is with him. There is so much that we have no idea about, and she hasn't even bothered to tell us about any of that yet. So until we find out about everything that has happened, I don't think we can make any commitments. I don't even think we should do that. And after speaking to my wife about this, she considered it and she agreed with me. It would be really stupid of us to just take her back, and simply because she had been kicked out by her biological parents whom she had abandoned us. I know that a lot of people think that we have been terrible parents in the past by interfering in matters regarding her school and bullying and stuff, especially when she had told us not to, and then again, people thought that we were being horrible to her, pressuring her to start applying to colleges or do something else because we did not want to support her only because she was earning. But I think our parents, we did whatever was necessary to keep her on the right track, and we are not going to feel apologetic for it. Even now, if anybody thinks that we are doing the wrong thing by not forgiving her instantly and taking her back in, it doesn't matter to us. We are her parents, yes, but we are also beings, and we also have feelings that are hurt. So she needs to prove to us that she's back because she truly cares for us and feels bad about what she did by abandoning us and refusing to speak to us over the past couple of months, and only then will we consider helping her out. My wife and I think it's the right way to deal with the situation at the moment, and so we even responded to her saying the same things. First and foremost, we want her to try and figure out life on her own, get an apartment and learn to lead a normal life, and after that if she needs help from us, we will be more than happy to offer it. And then she also needs to tell us more about how she got pregnant and who the father of the baby is and stuff like that. If she's ready to start living by those terms and doing the right thing instead of constantly relying on us for support, then we can talk. Update 2. It has been 3 days since we sent that message to Jackie, and she responded to us last evening saying that she was ready to rent out an apartment because she and her boyfriend were planning on doing that anyway if we refused to let her back in. Yeah, she is dating this guy who happens to be the son of her biological parents' family friends. They met a couple of times after she moved in with them, and they took an instant liking to each other, so they started going out, and she accidentally ended up pregnant and she wanted to keep the baby, and he also decided that he wanted to be involved in the baby's life. But they have only known each other for a couple of months, so they know that it's not the right time to get married, and they're only getting to know each other better, so they can eventually think about getting married. That did not sit right with her biological parents because they're kind of traditional, and they wanted her to get married before she gave birth, but she refused. They thought over it for a really long time, and they even ended up cutting off their family friends over this since they were supporting their son and Jackie's decision not to get married. Eventually, she decided to stand her ground, and that's when her biological parents told her that she could no longer live with them. She lived with her boyfriend and his family for a couple of days, and then she realized how wrong she had been about her decision, so she decided to reach out to us so she could make things right with us. Jackie also mentioned that she only wanted to move back in with us because she wanted to reconnect with her real parents and let us know that she actually loved us, that she had made a huge mistake, but nevertheless, she accepted our decision and told us that she completely understood why we did not trust her yet. She also told us that she was fully willing to do whatever it took to prove to us that she had truly realized her mistake and was not just coming back because her biological parents had kicked her out. Obviously, that had played a part in making her realize her mistake and acted as a catalyst, but there was more to it than just that, and she wanted us to know that she was truly and really sorry. So now she and her boyfriend are going to start looking for an apartment separately and are going to move in there together. She has even offered to bring him over to meet us whenever we want to. The only thing that she wants is for us to give her a second chance. My wife and I have discussed it, and while we really appreciate whatever she has said, we are going to take a while to make up our minds on what we want to do. Update 3. So my wife and I decided to reach back out to Jackie and tell her that we were glad that she was trying to make things work on her own instead of relying on us for help, and we told her that we still needed some time to come to terms with everything. That was 2 days back, and today she told us that she was completely fine with it. She just wanted us to know that she would be waiting for us to come around and accept her just like we had the first time when we initially adopted her. In the message that she sent to us, she also said a lot of other things, mostly just apologizing for everything that she had put us through. She said that she was really sorry for hurting our feelings and that she hadn't been considering the fact that maybe the only thing that we wanted for her was the best and that we wanted to push to do the right things in life. She told us that while staying with her biological parents everything had been very easy, but most of the time she felt like there was a lack of a certain comfort that she had always felt with us. No matter how much we nagged her and got on her nerves, she was always sure of the fact that we actually wanted her there and we loved her no matter what, but with her biological parents she did not feel the same way. She felt like a guest in their house. She told us that she had screwed up, and she knew it but was going to do everything in her power to fix the situation, starting with living according to what we had wanted for her. We had wanted for her to move out, explore the world on her own, and learn the ropes of living life on her own so she wouldn't need us forever, and now she was going to do the same thing. Probably not exactly the way that we had thought because she was going to be pregnant all the way and was still probably going to need some help from us, but this was at least a start and it was a good thing. So we are hoping for the best for her, and maybe soon enough we will feel comfortable enough to try reconnecting with her again. It feels good to know that she's really apologetic and we are willing to give her a chance, especially considering the fact that we are going to have a grandkid on the way, and if the three of us have a shot at making our family work, we want to take that chance. Update 4. Hello guys. Jackie gave birth to a healthy baby boy recently, and we are the happiest grandparents on the planet right now. It has been several months since our last update, and we got busy with everything. Yes, we were able to patch things up with Jackie because after a couple of weeks we decided to reach out to her and get her to introduce us to her boyfriend. We decided to reconnect over dinner a couple of weeks after my last post here, and she and her boyfriend were an absolute joy to be around. It was very obvious from the looks of it that they were really in love with each other, and while her boyfriend was around, we tried not to talk about the problems that we had been having. However, after dinner, her boyfriend left to go sit in the car, and we were talking at the door, and she thanked us for giving them a chance after everything that she had done. She started crying once again and told us that she had been really wrong about everything and that she was really grateful that she had parents like us who were always looking out for her even when she didn't even know what was good for herself. Right from when we had taken matters into our own hands when she was in school to trying to push her into doing better for herself now. We had always tried our best to be good parents, and yet she had failed us as a daughter, but now that she was going to be a mother herself, she wanted to change, and she was glad that we had given her the opportunity to prove that she had changed. I still remember that conversation word for word because it was just so heartwarming. After that, we started meeting more frequently, and we were all there for each of her visits to the hospital and checkups. Then about 2 weeks ago, she finally gave birth, and we have all been overjoyed since then. She doesn't know it yet, but her boyfriend has also asked us for our blessing to ask for her hand in marriage, and he's going to propose to her in a couple of weeks. Our families already get along well enough, so we can't wait for them to get married. And we are pretty sure that she can't wait either because becoming parents has only strengthened their bond, and it's really beautiful. Things are looking up for us as a family, and we are loving our time as grandparents now. I don't care what most people say. We are glad that we decided to give Jackie a second chance because she really has changed, and we are as proud of her as we can be. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.